All right, brothers and sisters. Hope everyone is doing all right, doing well in these times as prophecy is accelerating at a pace where many wouldn't even believe it if they knew. Um, I mean, whew, I mean, brothers and sisters, you're gonna have to hold on tight for this ride because this ride, um, this ride is with heavy turbulence, and the turbulence is never going to go away. This is turbulence that is only going to get worse. Um, with that being said, so many things are coming up, and I mean, one minute I'm making like 1 minute I'm making two lessons, and then the next minute I'm making two other lessons, and now I'm in another two other lessons, going on a third. I mean, and the lessons are just finished and complete, but I'm like, what time do I have to literally make all these things and get them out there? I mean, brothers and sisters, it's coming to a point uh, where you're gonna have to, you know, do a little diligence and in your research and stay on top of things. I mean, and I'm gonna give you an example. Today, while or just a few days ago, while everyone was focused on gas prices, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled to give the Border Patrol immunity from being persecuted, or should I say, being arrested for any crime they commit. And you know it's bad because the ACLU put up the 100-mile border zone that you see all here in red. See if I can zoom into that. I do apologize. Well, what you see here is that uh, that border zone as to which the the border patrol has jurisdiction to. What do they have jurisdiction to do? They have the jurisdiction. On Wednesday, the U.S. Supreme Court made it nearly impossible for Americans to sue federal law enforcement officers who violate their constitutional rights, further narrowing the already limited path to hold U.S. officials accountable for even egregious misuse in their authority. The court's ruling grants actual absolute immunity to Customs and Border Protection agents. That's nearly 20,000 officers who work sometimes involving detaining migrant children and flying drones over protests to help with situational awareness. Okay, like I said, and I'm not going to go into this, I'll post it. What they can do if you live in this red zone, 100 miles from the border, they can detain you. They can go in your home and take you based off suspicion. Now, some states some states are completely, and some cities are completely in the red zone. Take Florida, for example, complete red zone. Take Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, all of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. Yeah. Now, I may not be the smartest individual, but I would say that this is something where something or people are going to lock the border down from going out. Houston, there is a major problem. Okay, so this is what I'm telling you right now, brothers and sisters. I'm telling you this because this lesson is about the Great Recession. There will be purging, there will be chaos, there will be looting, robbing, mugging, all of it. Just so you're aware, okay? For your FYI, if you live in the Northeast or in Florida, do what the Most High said to do in 2nd Ezra, chapter 16, verse 40. He said, "O my people, hear my word, make you ready to the battle, and in those evils be even as pilgrims upon the earth." And we know for a fact that Christ told us that tough times like this would occur, because he also stated in Matthew 19:28 or 29, "And everyone that hath forsaken houses, brethren, sisters, fathers, you're going to receive 100-fold for following instructions." So for those of you in these tight nook and cranny areas, hey, and I say the Northeast and Florida the most, you may want to start moving, because this is not set up for immigrants. Okay? This is not set up for immigrants. This looks like a battle stance. So something is going to happen, and I'm gonna, Most High willing, go over what I believe is going to happen, which is an invasion. I do believe that's gonna come eventually. Why would I say that? You don't have $1 trillion of debt and owe all these other countries, and they just let it go. Okay? This ain't the time for being naive. This is the time to keep your mind ready. Okay? Keep your mind ready. Keep your be in tune emotionally, be in tune spiritually, physically. Because look what it says. They can conduct warrantless stops within 100 miles of the border. Now, when people think of the border, they usually think of the Mexican border. But no, this is why in Ecclesiasticus it says, know the whole matter. Okay? This is why it says, know little things and big things. Because certain things you may think is small. Look at all these people from California all the way to Texas. That's what people think is the border. but that's not what the government views the border as. So something catastrophic is getting ready to happen. Mark my words. And this was all while people were looking at the recession, which is still important, but you have to understand truth of conjunction. There's going to be so many things happening all at once, and they all link to something even greater. All right. So, with that being said, let's get right into where we left off. Now, I told you in the beginning we would go over certain things. You got a little understanding of the bull market and the bear market. You got a little bit of understanding prior to this even about the shrinkflation. And I even shared with you guys a little bit about the interest rates. Okay. Now, before we move further, I want to share this because this is very important. Okay. So as you know, the interest rate is about 8.6. So they would say they're pretty much, by the way, as you know, basic math, they're going to round that up and it's going to become 9 eventually. Okay. So you might as well just say it's at 9%. Now, understand everything that's happening is happening for a reason. So when I tell you, I said I would give you a little bit of information about banks, regular banks versus credit union, right? It says the financial crisis has given the banking industry a black eye. While some banks fail, credit unions are thriving. These days, a bank's loss could be a credit union's gain. I think the services are very good. I enjoy it very much. The people who work here are very friendly, very accommodating, says Summit Federal Credit Union member Alfred St. John. St. John became a member of the Summit Federal Credit Union in Rochester, that's New York, long before the banking industry took a hit. Because of the financial crisis, more and more people are turning to credit unions as an alternative to banks. What we are finding is that we have been talking about credit unions for a long time, that they are a great financial alternative, and I think the message is finally starting to hit home, says Michael Lanotti, Credit Union Association of New York. The Credit Union Association of New York says despite the economic downturn, credit unions are stable and safe, mainly because unlike banks, they are not for profits owned by their members. Our motive is to take care of our members, not to make a profit off of them. That, I think, is a big differentiator when it comes to service. Mike Vidala, Summit Federal Credit Union. Summit is one of the 476 credit unions in New York. They have more than 4 million members with $4 billion in deposits. Credit unions avoid the biggest problem that lead to the financial crisis, subprime lending. Vidala says credit unions did not put people in mortgages they could not afford. So that's the difference. A regular bank will take you home. Credit union will not. We want to put somebody in a loan they'll be able to pay over the life of the loan. They'll be able to buy the home and stay in the home. That's important to us, says Vidala. Credit unions also continue lending money, while some banks have stopped giving out loans or made it more difficult to get a loan. Vidala says all industries can learn from what happened in the banking industry, make decisions that serve you in the long run, not just the short term. For Alfred, St. John is personal hometown connection that made him bank on a credit union. Anything that's a part of the community is a really good thing, says St. John. Now, I just put this here just so people know that there are articles out there that will tell you that regular banks gamble your finances. So when, brothers and sisters, when this does happen, not if, when this does happen, hey, you know you could have warned people, or you should have taken your money out. Now, if you haven't taken your money out, I'm going to tell you, you may want to do it. I don't, and it's so funny to me because all of this is occurring as their so-called 4th of July, the independence is coming up, right? And boy, is it going to be crickets there. All right. Now, so many people are losing their homes. So many people are being forced to sell. I want to share with you this one video. Well, I have quite a few, but I'm going to get back into the videos. Obviously, you guys know we have very few scriptures left, but we're going to get right into this video. And share a few things with you all.
Mortgage rate, which was below 3% 6 months ago, has officially surged above 6% today, and then some. Let's bring in Diana Olick with all the details. Diana?
Well, Kelly, you're right. We got a 6 handle on the 30-year fixed, and that's the first time we've seen that since 2008. The average rate today came in at 6.13%. That's according to Mortgage News Daily. Just a note, though, from COO Matthew Graham, who said it was very hard for him to calculate this today in his lender survey. He said lender quotes are ranging from 5.625 with big upfront costs, or so-called points, to 6.375 with no points, because some lenders want to get that 5 in there. So we started this year, as you said, around 3.25. Now we're over 6. That means the monthly payment on a $400,000 home went from around $1,400 at the beginning of this year to $1,945 in just 6 months. That's for a loan with 20% down. So it's no wonder the home building ETF, ticker ITB, it's getting hammered. This includes big builder names as well as some of the home improvement companies like Home Depot, Lowe's, and Sherwin-Williams. Not only have mortgage rates shot up more than 0.5 percentage point in just the last 3 days, but home prices are showing no relief, and we are starting to get wind of increasing inventory. And one final note, a little over a year ago, the monthly cost of owning a home and renting were virtually identical, and that's as calculated by John Burns Real Estate Consulting. Now, owning a home costs $839 more per month than renting. This differential is almost $200 higher than at any time since the turn of the century, Kelly.
Wow, that's really interesting. So basically, it's always about $600 more to own versus rent. Now it's more than $800. And so if that pushes people back into the rents market, you could argue that would worsen the rents problem, where we've also seen inflation.
Right, we've seen incredible inflation with both multifamily rents and single family rents. So rent is becoming much less affordable. We're not seeing enough supply come into the single family or even the multifamily rental market. So again, it depends what are you going to choose? Pick your poison on owning versus renting at this point.
Yeah, everything pointed higher. Fascinating new numbers and big headlines there. Diana, thank you very much. Our Diana Olick.
Now, this is major. And I know you probably heard this about a few days ago, but this is serious. When it costs more to rent than it does to own a home, yet the process of getting a home is 10 times harder than getting an apartment, we have a major issue.
The rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage surging, in some cases above 6% today. It was just at 3% to start the year. For more on what this could mean for the housing market, let's bring in Diana Olick for more. Diana, it's a big move.
Huge move today, Brian. That's the first time we've seen a 6 handle on the 30-year fix since 2008. The average rate jumped 33 basis points just today to 6.13%, that according to Mortgage News Daily. A note from its COO, Matt Graham, who said it was very hard to calculate today in his lender survey because he said lender quotes will range from 5.625 with big upfront costs, or so-called points, to 6.375% with no points. Some lenders want to keep that 5 in there. So we started this year at around 3.25. Now we're over 6, and that means the monthly payment on a $400,000 home went from around $1,400 at the beginning of this year to $1,945.
Now, mind you, my goodness, they're saying that it's gonna be cheaper to rent. No. That is not the truth, okay? However, once your credit gets bad, remember, the world or Babylon runs on a credit system, unlike places like in Africa, it's money. But in Babylon, it runs off of credit. So bankrupting, bankruptcy, foreclosures, all those things add to your harm when you lose a home and then you go and apply for an apartment, because they're going to look at you as a liability because you can't pay your bills. Unfortunately, but that's just the nature of Babylon. Okay. From what I saw in cities, one bedrooms. So if you have an apartment and your contract is coming, your lease is coming up in the future, anytime in the future, do understand that what I saw was one bedroom is gonna go for $800 to $900. 3 bedrooms is going to go to $1,900. That's the same price as the housing mortgage. I couldn't imagine what it would be for 4 bedrooms or 5. We have a drastic problem, and they're creating homelessness. Now watch this. Though we haven't seen many people, I should say at this point, losing their homes, because people are in the market trying to sell what they have. I mean, I'm going to show you the mathematics of how impossible it's going to be to survive. But let me finish the clip.
$1,945, just 6 months. That's for a loan with 20% down. It's no wonder the home building ETF, ticker symbol ITB, is just getting hammered. This includes both big builder names as well as some of the home improvement companies like Home Depot, Lowe's, and Sherwin-Williams. But who's really getting hit is lenders. Mortgage application volume is literally half of what it was a year ago. So names like Rocket, Loan Depot, and United Wholesale Mortgage, they're just getting crushed, Brian.
All right, Diana Olick, it's a big story. Thank you very much. Pete and Jerry, and your take on housing stocks, the economy. This is a bigger deal than the stock market, honestly. Yeah, it is pretty incredible. And I think I was listening to Diana earlier in the day when she talked about just the speed of the U-turn. We talk about velocity and all these other things. This is exactly what's affected right away. I mean, when we talk about the 2-year, the 10-year, and we see these moves, that is affecting things just in an absolutely monstrous way. And it is Home Depot, it's Lowe's, it's those names, as well as DR Horton and some of those builders as well. It slows things down to an absolute screeching halt. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. In just 1 month, things have absolutely changed from being red hot to being ice cold blue. And it's just amazing, Brian. And I don't necessarily see that turning around anytime soon.
I'll tell you what, she talked about Home Depot, Pete's referencing the places that look like they're under a lot of pressure. 17 times forward at 250 on Home Depot, you're all the way back to pre-pandemic. I realize that's 10% from here, but the dynamic is if you can't buy a house, you're gonna spend some money on the one you're in. I think there are people that do have money. People are not destitute. They have jobs. At some point, Home Depot is absurdly interesting. And I think you need to have your levels on companies like this that are right in the fabric of this country.
Ivy Zellman says that 91% of mortgages are under 5%. Hard to move.
All right. They say 91% are under, right? Okay, there's more than one way to get people out of their home, and that's what they're doing. Brothers and sisters, do you know the supposed average, the average annual income? Okay. Now take a look at these numbers. This is the Justice Department government website. Okay. From April 1st, 2022 to May 14th. Alabama, if you want to, let's say, and mind you, this is the median family income by family size. So they're saying in order to survive in today's economy, you must be able to make this much in each state. Now, mind you, every state has different taxes, so the numbers will fluctuate or they'll decrease in certain scenarios, and also depending where you live. For example, when I lived in Phoenix, Phoenix is a massive, massive city, millions of people there. Different parts of the city have different tax rates. So if I buy in Tempe, it may be different in Maryville or Peoria or different parts, or in Scottsdale or in Maricopa. The taxes are different in every pocket of the city. That's something you may want to find out for future references in shopping, whether it be for clothes, food, goods, resources, or even housing. And then paying your bills, the energy, the electric, gas, and different things, the taxes would be different in those areas as well. So, for example, Arizona, one person, in order to survive, would need to make 58,000. 2 people in the 70s, 3 people in the 70s, 4 people in around the 90s. California, I mean, we already understand California. California 65, and I'm quite sure, mind you, this is from April to May. Okay, so the numbers will be different now, and they would be a lot higher due to the interest rates. Okay, and then you have, it goes 87,000. So 2 people should split in California, and 3 people. So why am I showing this to you? Because a lot of people are going to want to room in homes together. Brothers and sisters, I'm telling you, don't do it. Don't do it. It's going to be, yes, it's an easy way to make income, but if that person loses a job, you all suffer. I'm sorry. Now you may say, Minister Shab, how can we help out brothers and sisters? You can inform them what to do. You can inform them, move quickly, okay? Inform them. Places like Connecticut, one person was making an average of 72 grand. Two people, 94 grand. Three people, so forth, 108 grand. Okay. I'm assuming the taxes are astronomical there, as it is even higher than other places. Okay. Georgia, 55, 71, 79. Massachusetts, 75, 96, 117,000. I mean, these prices or these salaries are crazy, okay? They're good, but brothers and sisters, remember that inflation is rising. So what you don't see is inflation is rising, but the salaries are staying the same. So even off these numbers, people will not be able to survive. Now, remember I just showed you what happened while everyone was distracted? The US Supreme Court gave authority to what? To detain individuals, okay? To detain individuals 100 miles from the border, okay? Conducting warrantless stops within 100 miles. Now, like I said, these areas are going to face a mass amount of poverty, especially your Florida, especially your Washington, D.C., expensive, Baltimore, Philly, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine. I'm going to say it again, get out, because this can, right? Watch this. When this crash does happen, and let's say you don't want to leave your home, they can conduct warrantless stops within 100 miles of the border. They can conduct warrantless stops within 100 miles. And see, this is where, once again, brothers and sisters, this is where people fall short of knowledge. Hosea 4:6, the Most High tells us what? He tells us, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. That's why every time you say the border, someone only thinks California to Texas. You're wrong. This is the border to the government. So if you're homeless, now you know we have in Babylon, we have laws for being homeless. So what happens when you lose your home and they can conduct warrantless stops? They can take you and your children and anyone with you. Now, let's wrap it all together. Well, Minister Yashab, I couldn't see that happening. Well, think about it. If there's laws put in place for being homeless and there's only X amount of shelters, well, where else are you going to go? Oh, wait, you forgot about them cages they've been putting people in, right? So they got these Border Patrol facilities all over the country, and a lot of them are empty because Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden want to release them. So while the immigrants are released, and it's a crime to be poor in certain places, guess who they're going to put and round up in those places? You. I'm telling you, this recipe for chaos, and no one even recognizes it. Okay. Now, the average household in America, okay, this is what they say according to February of 2022. The average household in America makes $74,000, almost 75,000. That's the average. Now go back to the state list, and this is what they said you should be making. Okay. Now, if you are, let's say, in California, and you have, 3 people in your family, you should be making almost 100,000. That's what they say. Okay. I don't know people who make these numbers. All right. I don't know people who make these numbers. And still, the average American, the average Babylonian, a lot of them don't even have degrees, and a lot of them are swarming in debt. Now, mind you, those loans that they told you to use for school, they garnish your wages. So now we're creating, and that's even worse, right? Because with those loans in default, but yet the interest rate still keeps climbing on debt, they're going to take whole paychecks alive. And they're not going to have mercy. Okay. So, brothers and sisters, this is getting wild. Okay. This is getting wild. Now, we are to, as I read in scripture yesterday, we are to remain in faith, no doubt. Is it some people's time to suffer? Yes, that's okay. Suffering does not equate to the Most High hating people. I want you to understand that. Sometimes people have to make amends for their sins, and they have yet to do so. Sometimes your works haven't been good enough to the point where he says, okay, you're good. I need to try your spirit. Okay, and understand that in Matthew 6, Christ says how we should pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So when you understanding that on earth as it is in heaven, if the Most High in 1 John told us to try every spirit, what do you think he's looking to do in adversity? He's looking to see your spirit, right? It's not just in a measure for us to discern other brothers and sisters. It's him also looking at us as well. So this isn't the end of the world. However, it's gonna get hard. Like I said in the beginning, the turbulence is not going away, and many people will suffer. And just like I said, the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Okay? That's why I've been trying to tell people, get on board with Christ now. Get on board. Hey, and there's 2 ways that this is going to happen with people. Either because in America and Babylon, people only know gimme. People only know I want it now. People only know, well, you told me I would, right? They always go back to the government. Well, you told me I would be good. You told me this would happen, right? You barely hear anyone talk about the Most High. So, where is the light at the end of the tunnel for this? Now, there was individuals, who was with us. I think, what was it? 2020. They were 2019 to 2020, yeah, 2021. And I told them to sell their home. Then I tell them to sell their home and move. Now watch this clip I have. Wow. Watch what's happening. This clip here was today. Okay, and they actually are on a real consultation. Okay, this is a real consultation. All right, so this is legit stuff. Check this out, y'all.
Jerome Powell just took out a bazooka and fired not one, not two, but 3 shots directly at the heart of the U.S. housing market.
Now, really quickly, if you don't know who Jerome Powell is, then you must have been under a rock. That's the Fed. That's the Federal Reserve. Okay? It's okay if you don't know. I know you've still been under a rock, but Minister Yashab going to inform you a little bit. Okay? That is the man who controls the Federal Reserve. He is the one who raised the interest rate, and he is the one who said he will continue. But check what you don't see. Okay, watch this.
Jerome Powell out a bazooka and fired not one, not two, but 3 shots directly at the heart of the U.S. housing market today. And this is sealing the deal. This cements the U.S. housing crash because the Fed and Jerome Powell announced that they're attacking inflation with the largest interest rate hike since 1994. Specifically, the Federal Reserve announced that they're raising the key interest rate by 3/4 of a point. That's 75 basis points, a triple rate hike. And not only that, Powell signaled that more rate hikes are coming.
You heard it. More interest rate hikes are coming. Buckle up. Because 9%. Woo, I told you, they said by the end of the year will be 12. 12 going to 13. Buckle up.
For this year. As a consequence of these interest rate hikes and the Fed tightening monetary policy, we are seeing mortgage rates surge out of control. In the last several days alone, the 30-year fixed mortgage rate went from 5.5% all the way up to 6.3%, double where it was at the end of 2021. These higher mortgage rates, to go along with record high home price appreciation, have combined to make the U.S. housing market the least affordable it has ever been in U.S. history. And so buyers are on strike. They want nothing to do with this grossly inflated housing market. And the ultimate result is going to be this: 2 main things. Number one, we're going to see skyrocketing inventory on the U.S. housing market over the next 3 to 6 months. You're not going to believe how many homes are going to be sitting on the market with no buyer. But not only that, number two, we're going to see massive cuts in prices and reduction in values. A little later in this video, I'm going to tell you where the inventory is going to go up the most and how big these price cuts are going to be. But before we get into that specific data, folks, I want you all to understand just how dire this situation is. It's not only me on the Reventure Consulting YouTube channel saying there's going to be a housing crash anymore. It's mainstays in the industry preparing for a major crash. Just take a look at what Redfin, the online realtor, just did. They laid off nearly 10% of their workforce earlier this week, and their CEO said this in an email to his employees. He said that May homebuyer demand was 17% below expectations, and that Redfin doesn't have enough work for their agents and support staff. He went on to say that mortgage rates increased at the fastest point in history, and that as a result, the U.S. housing market could be facing years, not just months, years of fewer home sales. Meanwhile, the chief economist for Freddie Mac, the government organization that buys mortgages, just tweeted this: the U.S. housing market is at the beginning stages of the most significant contraction in activity since 2006, everyone, the peak of the previous housing bubble. And to top it all off, not only is Jerome Powell hiking rates, not only is Redfin laying off employees, not only is Freddie Mac predicting a slowdown, we are now seeing real estate investors jump ship and exit the housing market. Redfin just reported that investor home purchases slumped 17% from the pandemic peak in the first quarter of 2022, and those purchases dropped off the most in hot Sunbelt housing markets like Atlanta, Jacksonville, Charlotte, Vegas, and Nashville. And so in case you were someone who was still on the fence about whether the housing market was crashing, maybe you were still bullish about the future direction of the housing market. I see the financial guru Dave Ramsey still telling people to dive into the housing market. Well, you better wake up. You better not listen to Dave Ramsey, because the writing is on the wall. We're in the biggest housing bubble of all time, and it is crashing down right before our eyes. And those who are patient and wait things out and wait for inventory to spike, wait for prices to go down, are going to be rewarded, because values have very far to fall. The reason I know this is by looking at a long-tested indicator of housing market overvaluation, and that is the relationship of home prices to income. And we can see that in 2022,
remember what it said, home prices to income. That's gonna be major. My belief is this, right? So because I told you before, all of this has to do with the Great Reset. This is the time that they're going to make, if not all, or try, but more than half of the nation of Babylon's people come to their knees and submit to the government to get somewhere to live. And they're going to make it harder for people to get at home. So if you was, for example, right, if you were a person who had a home but didn't have a degree, they're going to make sure that you don't have a home. Because how can most people who don't have degrees cannot make $75,000 or $50,000 without a degree? Let's just be honest. It's dang near impossible unless they're working 3 or 4 jobs. And when these job cuts come, you ain't gonna get to be working 2 and 3 jobs, because they're gonna go from, for example, as bad as Walmart is, you see that there may be a lot of employees, but you see that the cash registers are not being used, right? And then you see half of them are electronic, right? Where you check out yourself. So that was already the process of getting rid of people for when inflation comes. I have 100 people. I don't want to pay you more, so I'm going to pay maybe 20 people more who can do the job and fire the 80. This is where it's going. It's going to be survival of the fittest, as they used to say. Hey, I'm telling you, the point is to get people out of the homes and beg the government. They're going to change rules about the housing. Mark my words. Mark my words. This ain't just for nothing. They're going to change some things.
Those typical home value of $350,000 was 4.8 times higher than the median income of $73,000.
See that? So they were talking about, if you want a home in May of this year that had a home value of 350, you had to been making 72 grand in your household. Now with people with COVID, with the vaccine restrictions, and watch, I'm going to share with y'all what they doing, not today, but what they doing in China. Did you know that they also having a recession too? Did you know that they froze all bank accounts? Did you know that the people are rioting because they can't take out their money or use their debit cards? It's havoc all over. That's China, that's Japan, that's India. It's all over. Babylon is just stuck in there, a normal day. But everywhere else has already felt the effects of the Babylonian collapse. And it's just the people in Babylon who are sitting idly like, oh, oh. That's why I told y'all, take out your money. That's why I told you, start to understand your talents, start to understand your gifts and all these things that can help you outside of the governmental scheme, because brothers and sisters, we're gonna need it. We're gonna need it. And it's gonna be serious. Now, ooh, this is gonna be deep. And maybe I'm gonna save this part mostly for because we still got the absence of gold, which are the men of the Most High. Now, this is gonna be deep because the scripture behind that is that people are going to help the men of the Most High. It's not like Noah, where the men of the Most High help you and open up their doors. It's going to be that you open up their doors for the men of the Most High, just like back in the times of Moses and the Levitical priesthood. That was the thing. The Most High said, you're going to take care of my ministers, and they're going to have a house wherever they go. You're going to have a room for them wherever they go. So if people was thinking that their ministers and their elders was going to be taking care of them, you better read the scriptures again, because it's going to go backwards, and it's going to go back how the way it was, because you can't take, and what people don't know from the book of Isaiah, so the ministers or the elects will have to go in different parts of the world. You can't buy a home every place you go. It's going to have to be the people that they meet and interact with that will help the other members along with themselves. So you wasn't getting a free ride just because you know a minister. You're going to have to do some work as well. Brothers and sisters, buckle up, because this is about to get real. I've been in several interviews and I said, hey, you're going to have to ask the serious question, like, if I get hired, are you going to cut me because I'm a new employee? You're going to have to ask these things. You're going to have to ask, are these recession-proof jobs? You're going to have to ask these things. You're going to have to demand and say, okay, I know what you're giving, but I want this amount of money because I know you're going to take taxes out. So I want to. So for example, brothers and sisters, say you want to make $5,000, right? Just throwing out a number. You know that 60,000 in math would equal $5,000 a month, right? No, you got to say when you're going to these jobs, I want 62,000. Why? Because taxes is going to come out, and then when the taxes come out, then you'll get your $5,000, right? See, you got to be smart, and this is how brothers and sisters will be able to survive through this. Is by being financially smart. Now, you can only be financially smart so long, because this system is going to collapse to the point where it goes into people welcoming the mark of the beast. How do I know this? It's going to scare you when I show you the videos that China said that they stopped withdrawals from bank accounts because the virus is on the bank account, is on the bank notes, which means what? If you can't use your card and you can't use your cash, what else do you use? Oh yeah, we ready, brothers and sisters. They about to implement that beast system. Don't be fooled by America or Babylon's destruction. They are about to implement it. And the reason I'm going to show y'all tomorrow or on the Shabbat about China is because if you notice, COVID happened first in China, and then all the things were implemented worldwide. So whatever is happening in China, you better believe it's going to spread across the world. That's the next step of this. Crash the economy, say that something is on the bank notes and that we can't use bank cards anymore, nor can we use cash. We got to go to something else. But before that, brothers and sisters, we have some time for that. Mark my words. We have just a little time. I would give it maybe a year, maybe a year and a half. I don't know. But the way it's going, things are moving quickly. So if you are, and why am I showing this video? So you understand if you're going to be in a home, how much you're going to have to make. Understand that this number is going to go up. That median income is going to go up. Do you know why? Because the interest rates. And the interest rates have increased the mortgage. So that means instead of 72,000, you're going to have to times that 72,000 times the interest rate, or just times your monthly mortgage. What they're saying, the average now is 1,900, and you're going to punch out those numbers and see, and then you can equate that to a year, and then your payments, and then do all the payments that you have, your car and medical, whatever the case is, and all that jazz. So it's going to raise, brothers and sisters. It is gonna get tough. All right, but continuing this video, things will get a little bit better, and I'm going to show you through scripture that too is supposed to happen. That things are supposed to crash. People are supposed to lose things, and some things are supposed to get a little bit better to make people feel comfortable.
This ratio is about 40% above the long-term average, the long-term 50-year average of 3.3x. So it's very reasonable to expect that home values in America are going to crash down to the historical level of what income suggests they should be. Make sure to note, the only other time in U.S. history where home values have ever surged this high relative to incomes was 2006, 2007 at the peak of the last housing bubble, and they then proceeded to crash all the way down to the long-term average. And the way that these price declines are going to be achieved is through a massive, unprecedented surge in inventory. May 2022 already registered the largest monthly increase in inventory on record, according to data from Realtor.com, over 100,000 extra homes on the market in active inventory. I believe we're going to see in June an increase of 150,000, and we're going to see every single month until November a 100,000 plus increase, which means that I'm predicting by November 2022, in only 5 months, the inventory on the U.S. housing market is going to be back to pre-pandemic levels. And while some of you might be skeptical about that, remember, folks, what we looked at so far in this video, number one, the mortgage rates are so high that regular home buyers can't afford homes. Number two, the investors are dropping out of the market left and right. Who's going to be the end buyer? Answer, there is none. And as a result, inventory is going to skyrocket and ultimately cause a big increase in price cuts. Now, here's an important question that a lot of you need to ask yourself, and it's this: how is my city, how is my housing market going to respond? Because looking at the national averages of the U.S. housing market are helpful, but when you look under the hood, like I do so often on this channel, you realize that different cities around America are in different stages of the crash, and we're going to see prices crash first and crash hardest in certain cities in particular. I believe they're going to be the ones in red on this map, where home prices are the
Pay attention to that map. Okay, pay attention to that map. From left to right. So starting at Washington, Spokane, Boise, Salt Lake, okay, a little bit California, even it's like a light red. Got Phoenix and Tucson. Tucson is at 23%. You got Las Vegas. Ain't no way I would move out there, but you got New Mexico, Santa Fe. That's almost looking like Albuquerque as well. You got El Paso. You got San Antonio. You got Austin, Houston, Dallas. I would never move in those areas. Good grief, it's just crime ridden. Memphis, bad. You got Indiana. I think that's Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Nashville, Atlanta. I heard Atlanta is extremely dangerous now. People dying left and right. Areas in South Carolina. And once again, brothers and sisters, I know you have to take this information as a grain of salt, because this individual who's given this knowledge is not using it biblically. right? He's not using it biblically. Now, brothers and sisters, I would say this with the scripture of 2nd Ezra chapter 16 and 40, where the Most High says, make you as pilgrims. If you had the opportunity to move somewhere, I would move to the border closest to Mexico. That way you had a way to run out of the US because it's going to get bad. If you go to Canada, understand, they're not going to let you in without a vaccination. That's true. Also, brothers and sisters, if you do move somewhere, do understand the rules for jobs and hiring. For example, let's say New York City. In New York, you are required to have a vaccination to work. Okay. Now in Texas, you are not required to have a vaccination to work. You see the different rules for everywhere, right? And I think in New Mexico, they want testing. In Arizona, it's iffy. I think it's up to the employer. California, they want the whole shebang. They want you with the gloves, they want you with the mask, and they want you vaccinated and double boosted. Florida, they don't care. they want you roosted, toosted, and boosted. What I'm trying to say, brothers and sisters, do your due diligence of research and move. If you in those pockets, especially in the Northeast area, I would specifically say from Virginia all the way up, you may want to run to the South. And I'm not even talking about South Carolina, North Carolina, or Georgia or Alabama or Mississippi. I'm talking about you best now run to Texas or Arizona. I'm just saying, because the cost of living, I believe, is extremely high. And these are things you're going to have to think about too. The cost of living, if you have a degree or some type of credentials, you don't need a vaccine. In those states, that's going to be great for you. Now, if you're in a place where you need a vaccine and this market is about to crash, you're going to feel pain because you can't get a job to fight some of that interest rate and that crash. So follow the Most High, take a leap of faith, understand, brothers and sisters, everyone's going to sacrifice. We are all going to lose things, people, places. We're all going to lose something. That whatever you lose, it doesn't drag you down with it. And that's good, because this is truly survival of the fittest. And it's sad because when I think of, people moving, around, like the scriptures, you have a lot of Israelite communities who have been fixated on gathering and staying in areas with other brothers and sisters and forgetting entirely the scripture tells us that we must be moving. And so now this crash is about to happen. And just like I gave you guys in scripture, this crash is going to dismantle churches. It will dismantle religious leaders, because people are going to be like, first COVID and now this. What the heck is going on? I need some help. I need some guidance. Why didn't you tell me this? Why did you tell me to stay here? Why didn't you inform us? Aren't you our shepherd? Aren't you our pastor? Right? Hey, they were supposed to be informing the people that, hey, what the Most High says is going to be entirely against your feelings, but if you want to endure to the end, you best not do what the Most High said, because it's going to get really tough, brothers and sisters. But moving forward,
overvalued according to the Reventure Consulting home price model, a system that I developed to tell you how much your housing market could crash by. A place like Boise, Idaho, I think is going down by 29% from peak to trough. My predictions have Austin, Texas going down by 35%, Phoenix, Arizona going down by 27%, Tampa, Florida going down by 27%, Atlanta, Georgia going down by 25%. And a general rule of thumb to follow is this, so you can understand how in the crosshairs your city is. If you live somewhere that was part of the real estate boom over the last 2 to 3 years, where all these people moved and all these homes were built and where home prices went up 50, 60, 70% in 2 years, there is a great chance that your city is going to get smacked in this housing crash. And as far as when are they going to go down, what are the cities that are going to crash first? Well, a good way to answer that question is by looking at the ones with the biggest surge in inventory. Data from Realtor.com shows that inventory is already exploding in markets like Austin, Boise, and Colorado Springs, where there's more than a 100% year-over-year increase. Other markets with big increases include Raleigh, Phoenix, Lakeland, Florida, Stockton, California, Salt.
Do your research, brothers and sisters. Do your research. I'm telling you, do your research, because they're going to do something to these homeless people when they become homeless. And I don't want no one to become homeless in this. Of course, we can't control anyone's finances. I don't know what everyone got going on, but brothers and sisters, know I'm praying for you. And I pray that you make it through this, and keep the Most High in mind, but be wise, be wise, be wise, be wise, because you got to hold on, but if you can, do so. With the housing in a different location. Now, if you go and buy a home in the same state or same city that you're in, just understand my prayers ain't for you because the Most High said to be a pilgrim. So I will pray for everyone, but I always say this. And I think people get scared when they say, Minister Ishad, can you pray for me? I say, yes. And I say, how would you like me to pray for you? Say, oh, in this aspect. I say, understand that after every prayer, I say, Most High, you can see this person better than I can, so let your will be done. I ain't going to sit up there and do a tap dance and prayer for someone I can't see or that I'm not around, because you could be telling me something different. And I could be praying for you. And then the Most High like, well, you don't know the whole thing. But you fasted and doing all this for that person. Brothers and sisters, all I'm going to say is I'm praying for you in righteousness, that you choose to follow the Most High, and that the Most High shows you his hand when these things go down, and that he's for you. If he's not in this aspect of housing, understand. Second Ecclesiasticus chapter 2. Understand, when you're brought to a lower state, this may not be you. That's okay. As long as you have food, shelter, and water, you should be content with that, because a lot of people are not going to make this. And you know what's so sad? I'm thinking of the elderly. Maybe whose children, they don't look at them very much, or maybe they don't have children. I'm thinking of the widows or the single parents who, hey, did anyone notice that today they wiped out $3 trillion from the retirement funds? Okay, that's something they didn't share with people. So if they're wiping out trillions of dollars, they gave stimulus checks. Do you think government assistance is going to last? It's not, because I'm going to show you a video that it says half of the debt in Babylon belongs to China, which means they may just come and try and collect. That's what happens when you bargain with bullies and you bargain with people who have no morals. Hey, so be wise, brothers and sisters. Be wise.
City, Utah, Spokane, Bakersfield, Nashville, Cape Coral, Sacramento, Northport, Florida, Riverside, California, and the inventory is going to keep building and building and building and building over the next several months, because not only are buyers dropping out, we're going to see even more sellers come to list their homes, especially real estate investors, because I talked about earlier how they're buying fewer homes. Well, that's step number one in how investors are going to contribute to the crash, is they're going to buy less. Step number two is that investors are going to start liquidating the holdings that they have. Because according to the US Census Bureau, back in 2018, there was 18 million single-family homes owned by real estate investors in America. It's likely that today that figure is closer to 20 million. And what's amazing is that since investors own so many homes at nearly 20 million, we only need a small share of investors to sell to crash the market. Like if only 5% of existing investors sell their homes, that would add 1 million new listings to the US housing market, more than doubling the current level of inventory according to Realtor.com. And I'm going to talk more about this real estate investor fire sale in a future video. So if you want to see that, make sure you're a subscriber, make sure to smash the like button. But folks, it doesn't stop there. Just as investors are going to be fire selling their properties to get out before prices go down, we're going to see the tremendous backlog of foreclosures that has been building and building and building during the pandemic release onto the market. And currently there's about 650,000 homeowners in serious delinquency who haven't paid their debt service in more than 90 days.
Hey, now, they created a perfect storm. And I said this last year, everyone was just chilling. They was just like, all the lockdowns is up, we getting stimmy checks, and, you know, we feeling good, we working. They set those people up because people who bought the homes are losing them just as fast as they bought them. Now, where do they go? They're not going to get in apartments because apartments are costing more. Brothers and sisters, I understand what he's saying. And the reason I'm sharing it is for the sake of understanding that the market is going to collapse. But brothers and sisters, the unfortunate thing is, I do not, me personally, Minister Yeshua, I do not believe the interest rates are going to go down. I believe they're going to stay sky high. That's what I believe. Babylon is in a world of debt and they can't get out. Now, with that being said, you notice how in the beginning of the video, he spoke about that he gives it a time frame of November. Do you notice why he never said November? November is the midterm elections to see who the people are voting for. So then they're going to start putting in bills to say, oh, let's lower it so they'll vote for us. Listen, hey, it's all a game, and they're playing with people's lives as if it was a roll in the dice. Okay, so understand everything, brothers and sisters, is for keeps. Because when you lose your home, that's permanent. It's not going to change in November. You lost it, you lost it. If you lose your job, you lost it, you lost. It's going to affect you. Because you lose your job, you have a choice now to stop, paying. Some people, I saw news videos, some people are sleeping in their cars and keeping their savings. Because if they pay these high rates on apartments, they're going to lose all their savings. Hey, tough decisions are coming, brothers and sisters, and it's getting scary. So I'm trying to put these videos out as fast as possible. So brothers and sisters, elderly, young, old, strong, weak, whatever the case is, black, white, brown, purple, green, tan, turquoise, teal, whoever, wants to serve the Most High, trying to give them the knowledge so they can survive. Because guess what? Me as a minister, I've been through homelessness as a minister, being in the truth of the Most High. And it is hard. It's hard. It is very hard. And so, I understand that when those times come, people will need someone to encourage them. Because a lot of times when I told people I was homeless, they said, well, what are you doing? What's going on? You don't know how to use your finances? You don't know how to do this? You don't know how to do that? That's not always the case. For example, I got into a car accident, and then a month later, I had a stroke. About 2 weeks after, I lost my job. So, and that's what created, and all it takes is certain situations. All it takes is certain situations. So I'm speaking from experience, brothers and sisters. Move smart, move wisely, and always follow the Most High. Don't lean to your own understanding. Don't lean to the comfortable decision, because comfort now means pay later. Look at what, and that's why the world is the way it is. Credit cards, mortgages, loans, all these things are enjoy now and pay later. And now people are paying later with homelessness. People are paying later with foreclosures. People are paying later because they want to sell their home, because they're going to be stuck with the high payments and other people will be getting the lower. It's catastrophic. One brother, I know, I was in the army with him, and he said to me today, he said he bought a home for 500,000, right, in Virginia. And he's trying to sell it. And he said he's had the home for about 5 years. Okay. And he tries to sell it. And they said, oh, we can only sell it for what you bought it for or less. And he's like, I made improvements to the home. I've done all these things. And the value of the home has went up. But they said, well, the interest rates have as well. So you're not going to get more for your home. You either can try and sell it as the same and come out with nothing, or you can sell it with less and be in debt. And this is the reason I told brothers and sisters before, get rid of it. Get rid of it. Because I'm going to share with you also in scripture that in the book of Zechariah, it says, prior to Christ's return, an economic collapse would happen worldwide, and we are here. Understand, brothers and sisters, even if you get a home, even if you get a car, whatever the case is, be ready to give it up. Be ready to lose it.
650,000, they're either going to be foreclosed on or forced to sell their home on the market in short order, which is going to further add to the inventory increase. Oh yeah, and by the way, on top of this, U.S. home builders are currently building 1.6 million new homes and apartments, which have been delayed due to materials and labor shortages. Well, those 1.6 million new homes and apartments, you guessed it, they're going to start to be delivered over the next 6 months as well, creating the perfect storm for the most epic housing crash in U.S. history. Those of you who waited, those of you who were disciplined and didn't buy at the peak of the market, you are going to be rewarded very, very soon, in my opinion. You're going to have your pick of the litter. Inventory is going to be way up. Prices are going to be down. The only question is, do you want to wait it out for lower mortgage rates? Because while mortgage rates have surged due to the Federal Reserve tightening monetary policy, I think it's likely in the next 1 to 2 years, mortgage rates are going to crash.
You heard what he said? 1 to 2 years. And I've heard this, that in 2023, 2024 is when the mortgage rates will crash. So understand, when you get a home, the interest rate is still going to be high. Your mortgage is still going to be $1,900. It's going to be $1,900, $2,000. They playing for keeps here. So even people, I'm telling you, they cutting all these jobs. Guess what? They ain't getting them back. So you better get your foot in the door and get it in there quick. I remember I told people this during the lockdown. I had congregants from Connecticut, where we had 30 who was from Connecticut and North Carolina and South Carolina. They ain't listen. I told them where to go, the safe spots in Babylon. I told them where to go. They ain't listen. And they still couldn't sell their home. They had the opportunity and they didn't listen. Hey, I'm here for people if they want to listen. Hey, praise the Most High. Okay, if not, all I'm gonna say is this: I ain't got nothing for you when the bad come. Because my wife know me. My biggest pet peeve, is when I give someone information, and I give someone advice, and then they listen to it, and then they don't do it and come back and say they need help. I'm gonna let you know I'm not gonna help you. That's the reason I'm putting the videos out. I'm trying to help people, you know, and truth is all out there, but it's up to you to accept it. It's up to you to receive it.
Because the US economy seems to be heading into a recession. And over the last 5 recessions in US history, every time mortgage rates have gone down. 1% decline to a 4% decline. The reason that mortgage rates go down during a recession is because interest and treasury yields tend to go down as well. And it's likely that as the recession plays out and eventually gets worse, at some point the Federal Reserve will stop the tightening and start getting into more accommodative monetary policy. Now, one variable that you all need to consider in this projection of future mortgage rates and interest rates is what happens to inflation. Inflation is raging right now, 8.6% year over year. Are we going to continue to see that inflation into the future, or is that inflation inevitably going to peter out or end in a deflationary episode? And I think it will, because put simply, Americans don't have enough money to sustain the level of inflation we're seeing.
Do you think they care about you having enough money? Huh? Do you think they care about you having enough money to survive? Let's just be real. Come on, people. They raised the interest rate the other day, right? Yesterday. Did you know today they just sent another $1 billion worth of weapons to Ukraine? But you hurting and people losing their homes, and neither can they afford to stay in apartments, but they're giving another $1 billion to Ukraine. Come on now. They don't care about you. The only ones who care about you is the Most High, Christ, and the Holy Spirit, and all the beings in heaven. It's the heavenly angels. Ministers, we care about you too. People in the body of Christ, we care about you too. But brothers and sisters, don't be selfish. Understand that we all going to go through this together. We may not go through the same exact numbers of or the same exact sacrifices, but we all are going to make sacrifices. Okay? It's normal. All right.
Right now, the savings rate in today's economy is near a record low. Consumer sentiment's near a record low. We're already seeing people cut back. The end result of that is going to be, in my opinion, a deflationary crash that's going to cause prices and interest rates and mortgage rates to go down. Very important to remember that the 1970s inflation, which lasted 10 years, was a very different animal, because back then Americans had tons of money. The savings rate was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14% per year. So Americans had enough money to sustain the high prices, which kept the inflation going. Meanwhile, today, Americans don't have enough money. So that's why I believe that Jerome Powell's rate hikes and his quantitative tightening right now, while it's needed to combat inflation, the end result, the long-term result, is going to be a deflationary episode, which means ultimately that I'm going to wait to buy a house. I see no rush to buy right now. There's no pressure from a buyer perspective. You're seeing inventory build, you're seeing prices go down. Let's let this play out over the next 6 to 12 months, because there's going to be some epic buying opportunities for those of you that have been patient. You're going to want to have the cash on hand. And of course, I'll be providing you with updates 3 times a week on this channel with all the real-time data regarding home prices, inventory, how the crash is playing out. So make sure you're subscribed, or make sure.
All right, real quick. Now, I want you to understand this, because he's not giving, none of these people that I'm showing you is giving biblical background to this. So understand, if you do go into this market, if it be the Most High's will, and get a home, get away from the chaos, remember what the Most High said. In 2 Ezra chapter 16, verse 40, O my people, hear my word, make you ready to thy battle, and in those evils be even as pilgrims upon the earth. He that selleth, let him be as he that fleeth away, and he that buyeth as one that will lose. So understand, if you buy a home, you're going to lose it. I understand that if I get a home, I'm going to lose it. We're not going to stay in there forever. That's common sense. How do you know this, brothers and sisters? He that buyeth is he that will lose. How do you know? Now you go into 2nd Ezra, same chapter, 16 and 70, right? And it says, for there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. And they shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. So this means that we, as the Most High's people, would have homes. You following me? But they wouldn't, obviously. So this is a punishment for those who wasn't following the Most High, but got good things. Mark my words. Now, some those who are sinful, they're gonna get things, but this is a punishment. Understand that. And no, a minister's home is not the ark. I'm gonna let you know that right now. A minister's home is not the ark. You may want to, for people, yes, as a minister, I'll take people in the congregation, but hey, I don't even have a home myself. So how could I take you into something I don't have? And then the Most High says, take care of your family. I gotta take care of my family. And then we have to apply the law and the word of the Most High, which goes from Leviticus all the way to Corinthians, and talking about taking care of the ministers, the servants of the Most High. That should be the people's priority, because they are the ones who do this. Okay, so we're saying that. Understand, brothers and sisters, it's gonna get tough. It's gonna get tough. It says, for strangers shall reap their fruits and spoil their goods and overthrow their houses and take their children captives. For in captivity and famine they shall get children. Now, this is sounding crazy to me. Why? Because they done created a border of checkpoints, and if strangers, which is a Gentile nation, is going to come and overthrow houses and take people's children, then that would mean there's going to be some type of invasion, which means Jeremiah 50 and 51 still have to be played out. And yes, brothers and sisters, it will. Because what you did not see is that Israel and Iran are as we speak. It's happening. And you know that when Israel goes to war, the whore, aka Babylon, will be right up there ready saying, we will stick our neck out for you. And they will get people to die in that war. Hey, isn't it crazy how I could be wrong, but through history, through every recession comes a war. I could be wrong, but that's just my belief that they're going to start a war to gather morale of people all behind something. And the first war was Russia versus China. They got you siding for, oh, Ukraine and help them. Enough. Them people sacrificing people over there. They not letting the Africans and the other immigrants get on the trains to leave. Didn't you see they just hung the veterans over there? One of them was Judah. You go and fight for people, and then they're gonna hang you. Russians don't hang people. Ukrainians do because they're Nazis. I showed you that video. Well, actually, did they take that video down? I don't think they took that video down. They could have, but yeah, they did take the video down where they were crucifying people. The Ukrainian soldiers were crucifying people to crosses and then lighting them on fire. So yeah, don't be surprised when they try and sway people. All right. Now, bringing it back home into a more realistic understanding. What is happening here? Brothers and sisters, please prepare for what? The diesel. He said, what? The diesel. Yes, the diesel. And though we may not, though you may not put diesel, we may not put diesel in our cars, why is diesel important? Check this out.
Average for diesel right now is $5.78 a gallon. Let's bring in the owner of Iron River Express. That is Austin Smith. Austin, I understand you have to spend what, $20,000 a week to fuel just 3 of your trucks. That's a lot of money.
I told you, $20,000 for 3 trucks. Whew.
I have to assume that a lot of trucking companies, smaller ones especially, are going under. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's very true, and it's sad because so many folks are going under left and right because we can't afford to stay in business. This crisis that we're facing in the country is by far worse than anything I've ever seen in my life.
What's your prediction if diesel prices either stay where they are at over $5 a gallon or go even higher to 6, 7, and 8?
Now listen to what he says. He's a truck driver who has his own company, okay? Spends 20 grand on fuel prices alone for 3 of his trucks and has a company. Listen to what he says will happen with the increase of diesel fuel.
Happens to our economy.
Well, this is just my humble opinion, but I foresee that we're going to have empty shelves. There's going to be larger companies out there that can stay in business that they have the funding or they've prepared for this, but all of these small trucking companies, which is a good portion of what moves freight across the country, is independent owners. They're going to go under, and if we go under and we can't afford to move freight, you're going to see a lot of empty shelves. You're going to see, this is again just my opinion, but
sure,
I think we're going to see a lot of panic, a lot of chaos, because people aren't going to be able to get the basic necessities.
Can we go back to your business? You got to spend $20,000 in a week just to fill up 3 trucks. That's an enormous amount of money.
So do the math. 4 weeks, 20 grand. He's spending over 100,000 just to fill up, and he's not getting that much back in return. So these truckers are losing money.
Do you pass that price increase on to your customers?
We don't set any prices for the products that we move. My business strictly is in the agricultural industry, so we move agricultural products. So we have, we don't set prices for that whatsoever. And unfortunately, we kind of walk a fine line here. If we increase our prices for transportation to the farmer or the dairyman or whoever it is that we're hauling for, there's a potential we could put them out of business. And if we put them out of business, then we're just hurting the economy even further.
How much longer can you stay in business with the diesel at $5.78 a gallon?
I've tried to do some prediction where I would have to shut my doors You know, if we get up in the mid sixes, or, you know, between 6.50 and 7 a gallon, unfortunately, I'll probably have to close the doors. I wouldn't be able to afford to keep my trucks moving at that point.
That's bad news. I live in the northeastern part of the United States, and we're paying well over $6 a gallon for diesel where I am. I hope it doesn't work out that way for you, Austin, because we'd love to see you stay in business, but we feel, dare I say it, we feel your pain. Thanks very much for being on the show today, Austin. We do appreciate it. See you later.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, brothers and sisters, understand tough times are coming. Tough times are coming. Do you remember the first individuals who had to get vaccinated in the country? Were truckers. And how many of them quit? 80,000. Now they're saying, truckers are saying, they are not making enough money to keep up with the diesel prices, which is diesel is the only thing that runs in these trucks. So the ones that are left, well, they can't sustain anymore. So what does this mean? This is a complete collapse, brothers and sisters. That's why I said there will be carnage. This is a complete collapse. Do not let anyone tell you differently. Check this out.
Welcome back to the show. Congressman French Hill. Congressman, we always enjoy having you on. Let's move on to this. You know, the White House and Democrats keep blaming inflation on the supply chain crisis, but we've got this new development, and it's a dangerous one. There's a growing number of truck drivers now quitting because soaring gas prices are wiping out their paychecks. They're talking $1,000 fill-ups at one time. We're already, you know, at the gas pump, we're already 80,000 truckers short. More than 70% of freight is transported by truck drivers. This is pretty dangerous stuff.
Do you see? Are you reading between the lines? 80,000 gone, quitting because of they're using their own paycheck to fill up the gas. Do you see where we are? Oh, they're not jumping back. Nothing is ever going to be the same. That's why I said, that man talking about the housing, if you get it, praise the Most High. If you don't, you better be thinking where you're going to go next, though, because the next time you have to go and sign up for your lease for your apartment, it's going to be 3 times higher, and probably even more than that. So then the previous man just said, prepare just to see empty stocks and empty shelves. Brothers and sisters, when are people going to listen? Guess what? They're not. So while I'm telling you, sacrifices have to be made, you're going to sit there and think about this, right? Do I get extra shampoo right now? Or do I get about 30 cans of string beans? Do I get 89 or 91 in gas? Or do I go and get about 100 cans of fruits and vegetables? Because cans, brothers and sisters, will last, and their shelf life lasts for years. These are the things you're going to have to think about. It's because, and I feel like the people in Babylon, they are walking with their heads in the clouds like, well, you know, recessions happen all the time. We've been in this before. We'll pull through it again. Brothers and sisters, mark my words, you're going to see fighting in the grocery stores. You're going to see fighting in the parking lots. You're going to see people mugging and following people in parking lots for their groceries. And I believe, brothers and sisters, I believe, because I said this 3 years ago, I said that they would have nurses and military present at the supermarkets. And why would they do that? For order. You create, what is the so-called Illuminati's phrase? Order out of chaos. Create the chaos and then implement the order. Because if I implement the order, they won't accept it unless something bad happens. Right? Why do you think they're trying to take guns? They're trying to take guns so you can't defend yourself. Because if you have, let's say if you have the Border Patrol, but they're not Border Patrol, and let's say if you have an invasion and people who are dressed like Border Patrol coming into your home because of this new law, guess what? You need something to protect yourself. But now they passed a new bill that anyone can call you and say you are a threat and take away your guns, right? and they want to use these situations that are happening, like for example, that situation in, I think it was Uvalde, Texas, right? How come no one saw the bodies of these children? The parents didn't even see the bodies. Oh, did anyone know that under that school they had an underground tunnel to traffic people? Did anyone know that? Is that why that all the parents, the real parents, the ones who weren't acting on TV, the real parents couldn't identify the children? They said, "This is not my child." And then they had to spin it off as if one or two children were alive and they hid under a table. Like, seriously? If you got an automatic weapon, wherever you aim is going to hit. Even if you don't aim, it's going to hit something. So you mean to tell me just random people survive? That from an incident where the door was randomly opened by a teacher, where he randomly decided to go in the back of a school and randomly go into a specific class and randomly let two children alive. Huh? Is that? Come on now. I'm no fool. So all this, brothers and sisters, is leading somewhere. Order out of chaos. Order out of chaos.
Liz, it's great to be back with you, and you're 100% right. There's nothing more integral to our supply chain logistics than having enough well-paid, competent truck drivers in this country. As you point out, we're short drivers now due to the baby boom generation retiring, many of the Biden mandates on employment, the vaccine mandates by the Biden administration, and now we're up 70% on diesel prices. If you're in a fleet, if you are a fleet driver for a big company like Walmart or JB Hunt, you probably have a price escalator in there for your diesel costs. It's up 70% from last year. But if you're an entrepreneur, a self-made truck driver working, you're paying almost $2,000, $2,200 a week, up almost $900, and you're in the spot market for fuel. You don't have a hedge or any sophisticated support. Yeah. That's what's killing them.
You know, it's an important point you make. I mean, truckers are so vital to our economy. It's a tough job that they do, right? We got to hand it to the truck drivers what they do for us in our country.
Now, I didn't include this, but did anyone see that Joe Biden wrote a letter to all the oil companies saying lower the prices of gas? Now, wait a minute. You said to lower the price of gas, but you cut off the pipelines. So if they lower the price of gas and everyone can get gas still, but the pipelines are closed, well, the gas is still going to run out. So the problem isn't the prices, even though somewhat is. The problem is that what happens when we tap out of gas? Oh, that's why you see, read the words war on fossil fuels. Fossil fuels, brothers and sisters, is gas, which means guess what? They want a green deal. I know you've heard this climate change, green deal. Brothers and sisters, also, this is serious, because if they don't want fossil fuels to put in your truck, in your car, what happens in the wintertime when you need it to put it in your home? You gonna freeze to death. Once again, if you are in one of those states that get snow and you're seeing that gas is so high and you're seeing that this president doesn't want to open up the pipelines for fuel, you better get out of there, because when you freeze to death like they did in Texas, when they froze to death, no one's going to be there. They're just going to say, oh, shame on the electric company, shame on this person. But did anyone notice the first day that the very first day that Biden came into office, he signed massive amounts of executive orders. One of those executive orders was to stop production of fossil fuels and to cut off the plants, the pipelines. Well, and wasn't it like a year ago that they said the pipelines had got hacked? Oh, you forgot about that, didn't you? All the way from the Northeast, the pipeline from the Northeast all the way to Houston had got what? Hacked. And the gas was off for days. At the worst of time, where the fuel also is used to fuel homes. So this is, you may look at a car issue. It's going to be a heat, cold, food, all things unimaginable issue.
You know, hats off to them. But remember when the energy secretary basically laughed out loud when she was asked about increasing U.S. production to help lower gas prices? Watch this.
What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Would that I had the magic wand on this. The message is we need to increase supply at this moment so that people will not be hurt during the winter months.
You heard it. She said you're going to be hurting in the winter months.
Did you hear that, Congressman? On one hand, she's saying, I don't have a magic wand. Well, yeah, they've been undercutting U.S. energy from day one. But then she's saying we need more supply.
Look, this is crazy. I mean, her cackling does not solve this problem. They've been wrong since January 20th, 2021, when they canceled the Keystone Pipeline, canceled all the regulatory benefits of building new pipelines, offering new federal lands for exploration, not approving pipelines to export LNG, and in their budget proposing $145 billion in new taxes on the energy industry. And finally, and significantly,
all right, so pay attention to what's happening. They cut my video short too. Ugh. Pay attention. So this is bad. Okay. This is bad. Now, check this out. Let me see something. Really, well, I'll bring in the scripture a little bit after. Check this out, brothers and sisters.
The biggest asset crash of all time is well underway, and you better prepare yourself, folks. It's only going to get worse. That's because prices across housing, stocks, crypto, they have so much further to fall. Because if we take a look at 140 years of historical data from the Case-Shiller Home Price Index, we can see that the U.S. housing market, adjusted for inflation, is 50% above its long-run historical average, which implies potentially 50% crash downside from here on out. Meanwhile, the stock market, even with its recent correction in 2022, is still 38% overvalued in inflation and earnings adjusted terms, according to its 140-year average. And I want to be clear about what this means. It means that there's going to be lots of buying opportunities for you all out there. The time is coming for you to buy. And later in this video, I'm going to tell you when that time is, when you're going to have the green light to buy into this down market. But first, you all need to understand why this is happening. Why is there a massive stock sell-off right now? Why did the mortgage market in America shut down over the weekend? Well, it has everything to do with two principal things. Number one is raging inflation. The red-hot May 2022 inflation report came in at a 40-year record, 8.6% year over year. And in response to this inflation report, investors panicked. They freaked out. Bond yields exploded. The 10-year U.S. Treasury yield is now up to 3.3%, its highest level in a decade. Meanwhile, the 30-year fixed mortgage rate spiked all the way up to nearly 6%. These spiking yields and mortgage rates mean that the cost to borrow money is exploding out of control. And ultimately, this increase in the cost of economic and asset crash, especially I believe it's healthy in the long run, is going to mean a big economic and asset crash. And in response to this inflation report, investors panicked. They freaked out. Bond yields exploded. The 10-year U.S. Treasury yield is now up to 3.3%, its highest level in a decade. Meanwhile, the 30-year fixed mortgage rate spiked all the way up to nearly 6%. These spiking yields and mortgage rates mean that the cost to borrow money is exploding out of control. And
now, that's one of the reasons why I said, be careful, whether it's a car, whether it's a personal loan, they're gonna pinch. And I don't think my belief, brothers and sisters, is that we're going to see a Babylon like we've never seen it. We're going to see homelessness out of this world. And I believe that they're not going to allow people in houses. Because of the inflation rate, it's going to be pulling teeth and nails to get into a home. Will it be possible to get in a home? Yes. But will it be hard? Oh, yes. Very hard.
this increase in the cost healthy in the long run is going to mean a big economic and asset crash, especially because investors have now woken up to the fact that the Federal Reserve is not going to be there to rescue them this time. Over the last year, I've seen a lot of people say, oh, as soon as things get bad, as soon as the stock market declines and the housing market wobbles, the Fed's going to step in, cut rates, and print money and save the day. But more and more investors are realizing that is not going to happen. Due to the record high inflation, the Fed can't come and save the day. They can't push asset prices back up because, after all, right now the inflation rate's 8.6% compared to a employment rate. This is the first.
Now remember, brothers and sisters, I was informing y'all, for those who were with me in person, said that they kept defaulting the government. Remember that? And now look where we are. Look where we are. I said, be careful, didn't I tell you? He said, they're gonna rock the world. This house. And many people are gonna be like, well, what? Now understand this. He just said that the inflation is serious, right? It's gonna be hard to borrow. So think about this, right? You see in the orange, or what you would call red, is inflation, and you see the unemployment rate at, well, apparently what they say is 3.6, which I don't believe that. Because with inflation, that means that what? More people can't survive, right? And then with inflation, we already have started to see job cuts, which means that unemployment rate should be way higher than 11%. You can't even afford your home. If their home is being foreclosed, guess what? They should be in that bracket too. And this is the sad reality that's gonna happen. It's just going to get worse. Nothing is getting better, because if it was to get better, you'd be like, oh, we don't need to wait for Christ. But the whole point of this is to get closer to the Most High before Christ comes, so that you're on the good side of this.
30 years that the inflation rate, the orange line, has been above the unemployment rate, the blue line. And until this changes, until the unemployment rate goes up substantially and the inflation rate goes down substantially, the Fed's going to keep tightening. They're going to increase interest rates by 50 basis points.
Did you just hear what he said? Until the unemployment rate goes up. They want people to be homeless. You heard what I said? You hear little words. You gotta pay attention to the detail, brothers and sisters. They want high inflation. They want high unemployment rates. How are they going to do that? Continuing to squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. That's simple.
Be 75 basis points. They're going to enact quantitative tightening and strip money supply out of the system, which is ultimately going to cause an asset bubble recession.
And he just said they're going to strip money out of the Babylonian system. Retirement, 401k, different types of things. They're going to, and I'm telling you, I believe they are going to cut the government assistance. I do. I believe it. I do believe it. Now it's sad because there are some single parent households who actually need those things. That's true. But there are individuals who they say take advantage of. Hey, it's unfortunate that those who actually need help are suffering or will suffer because those take advantage, but there's nothing we can do at this point. The only thing they can do is get right with the Most High. That's the best you can do, because this only gets worse, brothers and sisters.
These record high values in the housing market and stock market that we talked about to come crashing down. And this asset crash is what I call recession number one, because we're in the midst of an asset crash recession. This is going to be a white collar recession that basically vaporizes the net worth of the wealthy in America. But folks, pay attention to this. What makes the current economic situation so dire, and why I'm...
Now understand, he said the wealthy. Now, if the wealthy own businesses and it's going to affect them, what do you think they're going to do to their businesses? They're going to lay people off before they have to pay you, so they can save their business before paying the people. Be very careful, brothers and sisters, because a lot of people are going to be hurting.
Bearish on the U.S. economy and housing market and stock market is that recession number one, the white collar recession, is occurring nearly simultaneously with recession number two, which is a consumer confidence and spending recession. It's a blue collar recession born out of the fact that inflation for over 12 straight months has outstripped the growth in wages in America, which means that the average American is getting poorer and poorer every single month. We're seeing their savings rate is now at a...
That's the point of inflation, to keep you poorer and poorer.
Record low. American consumer sentiment is now at a record low. Why aren't Americans able to save money? Why are they so pessimistic? Well, when gas prices are up at $5 a gallon, when food prices are increasing at the most in 40 years, that's going to drain savings accounts and make it very hard for Americans to live and spend on a day-to-day basis. And that's why it's so important that you all are preparing for this crash. This is real. It's happening as we speak. For instance, just over the weekend, the US mortgage market ground to a halt. It broke. This is a story that the mainstream media isn't covering yet, but they will by the end of the week. Just take a look at what this 40-year mortgage veteran in the housing market just said. During my last 44 years in the mortgage industry, 4 painful moments stand out. Today makes 5. The red-hot inflation report from May was so awful that it changed the bond market's view of Fed trajectory, and as a result, the mortgage-backed security market went no bid. There were no buyers for mortgage-backed securities. And no buyers for mortgage-backed securities, that means that banks are not going to be able to make new loans and make new mortgages going forward. This is...
Whoop, you heard it? It's coming. You heard it?
mean that the housing crash, which has already gotten well underway, is going to get worse. Mortgage purchase applications, a forward-looking indicator of housing demand, have already crashed down to 2016 levels. Well, the crash in the mortgage-backed security market on Wall Street means that we can expect this mortgage application figure to crash even further down to the same levels we experienced at the depths of the last housing crash in 2009 and 2010. This crash in housing is occurring simultaneously with a crash in the stock market and the crypto market. It's also going to occur simultaneously with a crash in consumer spending. Because as I mentioned to you all before, the personal savings rate in America is now near a record low 4.4%, meaning that Americans are only saving 4% of their income on average. The last time personal savings was this low was 2007, 2008, right before the worst financial crash, the worst recession since the Great Depression. Similarly, consumer sentiment is now at an all-time low level. The confidence that Americans have in their finances and the future of the economy is now lower in June 2022, according to the University of Michigan, than it was in 2007, 2008 before that crash. And ultimately, the weak financial state of the U.S. household and consumer in 2022 is one key difference between today's inflationary environment and then the inflation in the 1970s. So I want you all to take a look at this, pay special attention. This is so important for you to understand the future direction of the economy, to understand this difference between now and the 70s, that back then, personal savings rate in America, how much Americans were able to save was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14%. Americans, even during the 1970s inflation, were able to save more than the cost of goods was going up. Today, it's the exact opposite. The cost of goods is going up much faster than American savings, which ultimately means that the inflation is not going to be able to sustain itself, as Americans at some point are going to run out of money, and they're not going to be able to buy gas at $5 a gallon.
Whoop, there it is. And brothers and sisters, I don't think they're going low. I think we're going to see $5, $6, and $7 worth of gas. Some places, Philadelphia, Sacramento, Los Angeles, they got $9 and $10 gas. I don't think we're going lower. I think that when it does crash, it's going to stay just like it is. And that will be the new normal. Remember, this is the new normal. We have entered the twilight zone. Everything from 2020 on forward. Remember Agenda 31, Agenda 30, right? Remember? The whole plan was to get everyone chipped by 2030. It was given 10 years to do a plan. That's what they were preparing. And that's what we're living in. We got about what? This is 2022. So we got a good give or take 8 years for all this chaos. It's gonna get worse. And eventually, and I don't even, and when I say we have, you know what, 7, 8 years, I'm not talking about Babylon. I'm talking about the world, because according to Jeremiah 50, according to Jeremiah 51, Babylon, according to I think it's in Isaiah as well, I think it's chapter 13 if I'm not mistaken, Babylon will be destroyed by Iran in following countries. Iran, Russia, China, they will all send missiles to blow this dump to smithereens. That's prophecy. Okay, also just like a prophecy for the tsunami to come on the East Coast. That is also in the book of Jeremiah, chapters 50 and 51. So, hey, to wipe out that whole East Coast, that's in the Bible as well. So, catastrophic, hey, the fall of Babylon happened strategically, piece by piece by piece by piece by piece. So as they've done to others and other nations, so as the Most High is allowing it to be done unto them. He wasn't going to live, and have a nation that was considered so great, and then no war be made against you. This is the only country where war hasn't hit its soil. Every other country has had invasions, right? Now, yeah, you can consider them killing the natives an invasion, but that wasn't an invasion. That was a deceit, as they gave them smallpox. Okay, so we're talking about Iraq invasions, Egypt invasions, Sudan and Ethiopia invasions. We're talking about Egypt, Syria, Afghanistan invasions. We're talking about Sri Lanka invasions. We're talking about Australia, the Tasmanian and the Solomon Island invasions. Those type of invasions, Vietnam invasions. Babylon will receive her portion. And thus she's been receiving it. And this is the beginning. This is the very beginning.
They're not going to be able to buy food at exorbitant costs. They're not going to be able to take trips. They're not going to be able to buy a house. They're going to default on their leases and mortgages if this inflation continues above the savings rate and the wage growth rate.
Now, remember I said you're going to have to negotiate. When you go into these jobs, you're going to have to say, hey, let's keep it real. I'm not here to waste your time. I don't want you to waste my time. I thank you for having me. It's a recession, it's inflation. All right, I'll answer your questions. Now, you're going to ask me, do I have questions? How much you paying? This is what I want, and this is why I need it. That's as simple as that. You're going to have to say it with your chest. No more, oh yeah, I'll just take the job because $15 an hour ain't going to do it. $20 an hour ain't going to do it. It ain't going to cut it. People are going to be scraping for their lives.
That's why ultimately, ironically, the end result of this inflation is going to be a deflationary crash.
I do not believe this part. I believe in some aspects because the Bible says, the Most High says that things will become cheap again at one point, but it's to bring in confusion. So the cheapness will come, and then the inflation will continue, but people will still be hungry. People will have no jobs. I'm going to show you this in scripture as well. So the inflation, when I say the inflation remains, it will remain.
The limiting factor is income and wages. Do people have enough money to support the cost of goods and services? If
income and wages, remember that. Remember that. So that times of living, and I hate to even say it, but and I'm not a person, who is an advocate of getting degrees. Even though I have one myself, I understand that it can be useful. And that doesn't make someone smarter if they have a degree, right? But this is where you will see those with degrees or certifications flourish a lot more, because that whole side hustle and all that stuff, selling things on their own, that ain't gonna work, because guess what? You're gonna have to charge people 3 times as much as what you spent your own personal money in investing and making the products, right? So let's say if, I make wicker baskets, right? Or something like that, right? If I make wicker baskets and it takes me $20 a basket, am I going to charge the people $30 and only taking $10 of revenue? No, I'm going to charge you like $60 because it took me $20 and I still need income. And who's going to buy wicker baskets for $60? Brothers and sisters, we're going to have to be really creative. This is the time that the body come together better than ever, put aside differences, shut up, and they got to get in order to survive.
That's like they did in the 1970s, then the inflation can continue raging for a decade because Americans have the money. If no, like today, then a deflationary crash is guaranteed because ultimately there's not enough money to go around in consumers' bank accounts and wallets to support all the economic activity that's occurring. And the end result is then going to be a deflationary recession where the prices of goods plummet. The prices of houses plummet. I actually think by this time next year, gas prices are going to be half what they are today. Now, you might say, oh, that sounds great. Well, it'll be great in one respect. The prices of things are going to go down, but we're going to have a recession attached to that. There's going to be a lot of layoffs, a lot of job losses. Companies are going to shut down. It's going to be pandemonium out there. So in the madness of all of that, it's going to be hard to take solace in the fact that goods are cheaper. But for those of you who prepare,
you heard what he said? That comes from the Bible, brothers and sisters. That specifically comes from the Bible, what he just said. Let me get that for y'all because I want y'all to see this in 2nd Ezra. Some people will be afloat and the others will not have nothing. Hey, I said it. And Most High is my witness that I am trying to help and assist brothers and sisters. I know many people don't listen, but hey, for those of you who do listen, check this out. All right, let's see. Check this out. Okay. Really quickly, I'm going to actually read Ezekiel, and then I'm going to read 2nd Ezra. And then we're going to get back into that clip. So, Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 17 through 19. And I read, they shall cast their silver in the streets, and their gold shall be removed. So the silver is the money you have in your home, and the gold is what you have in your bank account, because it wouldn't be removed unless it was somewhere else. Their silver and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of the Lord. That's why I say get yourself together spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. Some people in this world, if not most of the people in this world, they know love through money. They know surviving through money. But what happens when money won't save you? Just what the Most High said. They shall not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, because it is the stumbling block of their iniquity. Now, satisfy their soul means to buy things they want. Neither fill their bowels, which means what? You won't be able to, the money will be in such a bad state that it will not have any impact on you being able to get food. You won't be able to fill your bowels. So what the Most High said, because money was a stumbling block. A stumbling block is, oh, well, say you're on the narrow path and something comes up because of money. And then you go off into money. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then you end, like, for example, there's tons of sisters who make lotions and fringes and all kinds of things, head wraps and stuff like that. And I understand the head wraps, you know, but it comes to a point like, okay, I know that you were doing that to survive, but now what is your talent, right? What is your talent? And so then this is where money becomes a stumbling block, because instead of using your talent, you go and do things other than using your talent. And then it becomes about revenue rather than producing fruits from your talent. And that is when the Most High will judge people. That's what he will judge people for. Now going to 2nd Ezra, what this man just spoke about. Inflation, everything high, and everything will go low. So look what the Most High says in 2nd Ezra chapter 16, verse 19 through 21. Behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. But for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of scourges. Behold, victuals. Now victuals is food, brothers and sisters. Victuals shall be so good, cheap upon the earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, meaning fighting and killing and shooting, famine, and great confusion. Okay, and what comes from the great confusion? Because when things do occur, and then the victuals, food, and certain goods will become cheap, people won't be able to afford it. Famine. What is famine? Famine is a shortage or lack of something. Okay, so we're going to see this, and people will there. So understand this. Though famine is usually a term for food, I want you to understand that famine can also be used for what? Wants. Wants. Okay. And let me try and get this other one too. Now, and it means a shortage. So, famine of households, because they can't get in there. Famine of funds, because they can't get a job, right? Famine of gas, because it costs so much. You see where this is going? All of this is contributing to judgment. Now, all of this, remember the Most High said, famine, plague, tribulation are sent for scourges for amendment. When you look up the word amendment, it tells us what? An alteration or change for the better, a correction. So it's the Most High saying, you're not doing what you think, you're doing what I tell you to do. And what you're doing isn't up to my standard. Therefore, I'm going to allow tribulation. I'm going to allow famine to occur, because what you think and what I think is two different things. A lot of people hate when I use this scripture. And please don't use this out of context. Oh, I can't stand when people do this. Isaiah 55:9 or 55:8 and 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. So the Most High, how you thinking, how you think you're gonna get through it, scratch that, toss it in the trash, get right with the Most High spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally, and then you'll understand what his thought process is, and then you'll know how he thinks of you and what you should be doing through the Father's eyes and not yours. Because brothers and sisters, would you like to go into this blind, or would you like to go into this with the Most High's eyes, knowing that he already seen what happens, and so he knows when to move your left and right foot? I'll take his sight for $1 million. Okay, I'll take the Most High sight. All right. So this is where it's going. It's unfortunate, but hey, after this, we got the resurrection of Christ. We got Christ's return. I mean, it's gonna be amazing. And yes, I don't know. I've been contemplating because I did put a video on YouTube. Should I, do that lesson again? Because that's such a long lesson, but a lot of people wouldn't understand it. But seeing the resurrection, seeing all your loved ones resurrect, every single person who ever been killed or died in sickness, they're going to resurrect. Now, how they resurrect is entirely up to how they lived. So some people are not going to resurrect as you think. You know how when people died, they say, oh, they're looking down at me from heaven. Well, there's two types of resurrection. There's going to be a resurrection of evil, and they're going to come up as corpses because they weren't with the Most High, or they're going to come up in white robes and come with Christ and the kingdom. So, it's big. We have a lot of blessings to look forward to, brothers and sisters, if we adore righteous. Moving forward, let's finish this video.
For those of you who saved money, stockpiled cash, didn't take out debt over the last 1 to 2 years, this is going to be your time to shine. This is going to be your buying opportunity. I believe starting in the next 6 months, we are going to see the real buying opportunities unfold both in the stock market and the housing market. And to support this point, I want to reference a tweet from Michael Burry, the man who called the last housing bubble, who called the last financial crash. He just tweeted this: the feeder took more than a decade to overstuff. Thus, it's not likely everyone gets out in less than a year. What Michael Burry is saying there is that this asset bubble, the biggest bubble of all time, this took a decade to build, and actually it took decades to build. So while we're going to see the buying opportunities really start in 6 months, it's going to take longer than that to hit the bottom because people are still delusional. There's still a lot of cognitive dissonance out there, despite the fact that the Fed is telling you that they're going to hike interest rates and take money out of the system. I still see a lot of people saying to themselves, oh, that can't happen.
See, I'm saying the same thing. I just seen one brother, he just sent me something, said they took out $3 trillion in 401ks and retirements and all that. I told you the collapse of a lifetime was coming. I told you. You ain't getting nothing. Hey, everyone is going to be on the same playing field, and it's going to, and their world is going to be dog eat dog. You're going to have a lot of people hurting. I should have listened. I said the collapse of a lifetime is coming. Why listen?
As long as there's a lot of people still saying that, it's a sign we have not yet reached something called market capitulation, which ultimately is a broader acknowledgement among everyone in the market that it's going down. And that's when the true buying opportunities start. So you're going to want to have cash on hand for the initial buying opportunities that come up later in 2022, and then for the rock bottom price buying opportunities that come about in the middle of 2023.
So pretty much, brothers and sisters, guess what? Save for those closing costs. Right? Save for the closing costs.
Have cash on hand for this, because let me tell you folks, the debt markets are going to dry up. It's going to be hard to get a loan. It's going to be hard to trade stocks on margin. It's going to be hard to get a mortgage. You're going to want cash to be able to take advantage of these opportunities over the next 12 months. Additionally, before I sign off today, I want to reveal some opportunities, some investment opportunities that are available right now, actually, not by buying companies and going long on the market, but by shorting certain companies in the stock market. I think there are several zombie companies right now that are in danger of going out of business, and they're great options for a put option or a short. They could yield a great return while you're waiting for the other buying opportunities to crop up. So if you're
Now, I'm gonna tell you, me as a minister, I mean, do as you wish, but with inflation so high, I wouldn't put a cent in any of these stocks. You see, did you notice that everyone who thought they were smart was putting their money into Bitcoin? Did you not see that crash too? Go ahead and listen to them all. No, sir. This is the collapse of a lifetime. They're going to take every dime of these investors.
interested in hearing about the companies that I am betting against that I think are going to go out of business, make sure you're a subscriber to this channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and lastly, smash that like button, because I got that video coming for you over the next week. The 140 years of data on the housing market and the stock market in this video came from the Case-Shiller Home Price Index, as well as the Robert Shiller Cyclically Adjusted PE Ratio. I'll have links to the sources of both of those in the description.
All right. It's real, brothers and sisters. I'm just trying to help. That's all I can do. Last video of the evening, morning, wherever you are, afternoon. Last video. Oh, and I did want to share this with y'all though. See the property values. A brother from California sent me this. It's happening everywhere, everywhere. So prepare. I would say more than preparing for well, I can't even say more than preparing for, because at the same time, brothers and sisters, this is where we need to be very meticulous and detailed with multitasking, saving for food, saving for a place to stay, whether it be an apartment or a home, because the prices are just going to be there, and boy, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. Okay. This was today. All right. The economy is going to collapse. I already told y'all that. For everyone watching YouTube, because I know there are some viewers here that do watch the videos over and over again. I'll be sure to put these links in the description on YouTube. Okay. Also, this one I won't do, but I did want to share with you something. So remember when he said, you know, some homes would go down 25%. So let's say if you have, you know, or actually I thought he said some 25%, some 40%. So we'll go 27%. And so let's say if you have a home for 40 grand or 400,000, right? So 27% of that would bring it down, okay, to a possible 108,000. Okay. So these are going to be very big drops, but the interest rates are going to be high. Okay. I wouldn't, me personally, I would expect it to be more than these numbers if you are choosing a home. But of course, just make sure you do your research and, whatever you do, I don't know, we do have some new viewers today, so shalom, brothers and sisters. Whatever you do not, if you get a home, do not get a variable mortgage because your mortgage will increase and fluctuate with the inflation. Make sure that you get a fixed mortgage and make sure that you pay your taxes. I would say do not wait to pay your taxes at the end of the year, but do the fixed taxes where you pay every 6 months or quarterly. Okay, have them break it down. All right. Be wise and and of course, I think it's going to be scary at the same time because I think at some points some lenders are going to let people just take bank loans even if they can't afford it just to get things going, and then repossess or foreclose their home, excuse me. So just be careful and make sure that whatever you do, it's for a good decision as to you and whomever is with you, your family, loved ones, or maybe other brothers and sisters that you may choose to keep with you, right? All right. And here goes the last video of Eve. I think this is my last one. Oh no, my second to last. Sorry. Sorry, you guys. But it's very informative. So take some notes if you need.
The supply chain crisis is seeming like a never-ending nightmare that just keeps disrupting business and port operations and sending consumer prices to sky. 2 points continue to emerge all across the system. By now, nearly 70% of U.S. consumers believe that empty shelves have become the new normal. Meanwhile, over 300 container ships are still stranded at sea, and the worsening labor shortage at key ports is threatening to result in a traffic jam that's unlike anything we've ever seen. On top of that, fuel costs are pushing freight rates to explode, and if you think you've already seen the worst of price increases at your local store, buckle up, because they're about to shoot all the way into the stratosphere. Today, we have compiled the freshest news about the supply chain problems we're currently facing and the ones we're going to face in the near future. But before moving on, please support us by leaving a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel so you don't miss our future videos. One thing everyone can agree on at this point is that supply chains are terminally broken. In the US, one of the main reasons for that breakdown is the acute shortage of supply chain workers. Today, there are 5.5 million more job openings than there are workers available to fill them, according to the Labor Department. And as contract negotiations.
So when they said that unemployment rate is 2%, like I said, I don't believe it. I do not believe that one bit.
Between longshoremen and operators of the nation's largest ports remain adrift, U.S. companies are afraid of a repeat of last summer's supply chain chaos, which resulted in nationwide shortages and unprecedented price hikes. The contract between over 22,000 dock workers at 29 ports along the West Coast and The Pacific Maritime Association, composed of ocean carriers and port operators, expires at the end of this month. And up until now, both parties have not reached an agreement. The entire industry is on pins and needles, said one manufacturer who ships goods to the West Coast from China. This is a looming crisis, and we're hearing and reading nothing about any real progress on this, and no messaging from the White House. If a deal is not closed within the next 2 weeks, millions of
June 14, 2022.
companies will be at risk of work stoppages and production slowdowns, just as happened during previous negotiations. The timing couldn't be worse. The impasse comes as U.S. businesses are bracing for a surge in shipments from China. The world's second largest economy started sending massive loads of cargo all at once to the U.S. coast after lifting lockdown restrictions last month. I doubt we'll see a harmonious period of thoughtful discussion once the official contract expires in 2 weeks, the manufacturer continued. It's not going to happen. Things are going to break down quickly, with hundreds of ships now being reloaded in China, headed back this way with goods for the back half of the year, he alerted. This is a perfect recipe for disaster, and it means we're going to see a new wave of disruption, sparking chaos at our ports in a few weeks. That's a quite alarming outlook, especially considering that supply chain disruptions skyrocketed over 400% over the past few years. According to data collected from Statista, in 2019, U.S. companies reported 2,568 supply chain disruptions from January to December. Back then, 56% of companies reported facing bottlenecks at some point in 2019. By 2021, that number climbed to a shocking 11,642 disruptions, an increase of over 453.3%, which led 88% of companies to report supply chain snarls. By now, every new survey, study, or report shows that conditions are still getting worse in the system. At the same time, everything is becoming more expensive. Port congestion is worsening and becoming increasingly widespread, noted Michael Tran and Jack Evans at RBC Capital Markets in a report released last week. The company uses alternative data and geospatial intelligence to track 22 of the world's largest and most influential ports, and in its latest study, it found that 1/5 of the global container fleet is currently stuck in congestion at various ports, and less than 40% of ships are arriving on time. Conversely, freight prices are still reaching new record highs as marine fuel prices and insurance costs continue to soar. The report also outlines a multitude of forces that are likely to translate into even higher costs for U.S. consumers, already struggling with inflation at a 4-decade high. Widespread expectations that inflation may have already peaked, as suggested by some signs in the last Consumer Price Index report, may be wishful thinking, according to Ben Emmons, Managing Director of Global Macro Strategy at Medley Global Advisors, and they've been tracking the flow of goods. He says, if anything, forces outside of the Federal Reserve's control are growing, just as policymakers are getting ready to deliver their first 50 basis point rate hike in almost 22 years on Wednesday. And there's no way rate hikes will bring container ships back from Shanghai any quicker to LA, Emmons said in a recent interview. On a similar note, RBC's head of digital intelligence strategy, Michael Tran, highlights that we still haven't seen the full ripple effect of supply chain issues that are now going global because of China's lockdowns and Russia's aggression on Ukraine. There are very few levers you can pull when you look at the ripple effects. We almost need to let it run its course, he said, adding that
Let it run its course, and whoever's in its tracks, they just want to roll right over.
the lifelines to global trade are definitely becoming more expensive. and will definitely trickle down to the end user. The 2021 supply chain woes, which Tran and Jack Evans referred to as supply chain bottlenecks 1.0, were basically the result of record consumer demand for goods. This year's 2.0 version is being aggravated by the ripple effects of the partial closure of the port of Shanghai and the raw material and commodity shortage triggered by the Russia and Ukraine crisis. Inefficient operations at major ports also continue to wreak havoc, they said. In America, port congestion at the country's largest facilities in Los Angeles and Long Beach should be improving, given the slowing line of ships of the past few months as China grappled with a new virus outbreak. But that has not happened, Tran and Evans said. Instead, operational efficiency at both ports has eroded over recent months, they wrote, pointing out that the current turnaround time is 6.9 days compared with 3.4 days at the same time last year. LA and Long Beach should be doing better by using this opportunity to completely reset and to clear the bottlenecks, but they're not. That's what's gone global.
Complete reset, huh?
Said last month, Chinese exports rose by 17% compared with the year prior, more than doubling the 8% spike economists had expected, and far exceeding the 4% annual pace in April, according to a Wall Street Journal report. To make things worse, the twin ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles are ranked last on the 2021 World Bank's Container Port Performance Index, 369 and 370, respectively. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ocean, 344 are still waiting off the coast of China, marking a 34% increase over the past month. It currently takes 74 days longer to get goods from a Chinese warehouse to a U.S. warehouse, a route that used to take 37 days, according to RBC's report. That's to say, the shipping crisis will persist and continue to add pressure on already high inflation. At the end of May, maritime fuel prices had jumped 66%, while diesel costs surged by 168% compared to a year ago. According to one Citigroup economist, these higher costs are likely to crush consumers' finances in ways most of them are not even aware of. Nathan Sheets, Citi Global Chief Economist, noted in a live debate this week that continued supply shocks are having a powerful effect on consumer spending. He warned, "We are clearly now seeing demand destruction right now, and we're going to continue to see upward pressure on prices." Americans are already absolutely terrified about the rising cost of living. In fact, 52% of Americans said that the biggest issue facing the country was rising prices, according to a new 5-house poll. We asked Americans this question in a variety of ways, but regardless of how we asked it, the top answer was always the same: inflation, researchers noted. Moreover, more and more U.S. consumers are seeing empty shelves as the new normal.
See that? 67% of consumers have begun to accept shortages everyday life. I mean, tell me I'm having a mental breakdown without telling me. This is what I'm talking about. When I said people in America are the most docile people, they accepting that it's normal. But the Bible, the Most High said they would never think it as something strange. They would never think it as something strange.
According to a recent survey by SAP, 67% of Americans think product shortages are a new normal, and 74% said shortages will continue to dominate supply chain conversation this year and into the next. At least 77% of Americans reported food shortages this year.
77. Take a look at these numbers. These numbers are for these particular things. Shortages, 52% of hygienic and personal care, 37% prescription medication, personal protective equipment, not worried about that. Consumer electronics, we don't need it, right? Seasonal supplies, I mean, gardening is important for our food, right? Recreational equipment, I mean, take a look at this. But the worst one is the food. The food and the hygienic and personal care products.
2% reported shortages of personal care items, and 32% reported shortages of prescription medications. Roughly 9 in 10 of the respondents have experienced shortages in the past 12 months, and 70% of them don't think brands or retailers have effectively communicated about their supply chain challenges.
That's what they think it is about communication. See, the thing in Babylon is everyone thinks something has to do with something political. But once they open their eyes and stop looking at the carnal, the political, because sitting there two sides to the coin. Okay, stop thinking political, start thinking spiritual. See that these people are all the same. It's just what it is.
Almost 1/3 of respondents said they have stopped purchasing from at least one retailer altogether due to supply chain challenges. The survey makes clear that as we move into the third year of the pandemic, many consumers see a future with some empty shelves, stressed Tony Harris, chief marketer at SAP Business Network. On the other hand, retailers are resorting to some old tricks to mask product shortages and rising brands. Brands have started to shrinkflate their products in recent months, a practice that consists of downsizing package sizes but retaining previous price gains.
See that? They're gonna shrink our food, but they're gonna charge you even more.
Joining the parade of downsized products is cereal stalled Honey Bunches of Oats, which has seen the weight of its standard box, previously 14.5 ounces, lessen to 12 ounces, a reduction of roughly 17%. Angel Soft Toilet Paper has also reduced its size from 425 sheets per roll to 320.
Look at that.
Bounty Paper Towels have cut their rolls from 165 sheets per roll to 147 late last year. Gatorade also cut its bottle size from 32 ounces to 28 ounces, the Daily Mail reported. This crazy economic environment is about to get even crazier as we head into peak shipping season. Shortages, even higher consumer prices, and a whole lot of turbulence are now looming on the horizon. Get prepared for these challenges while you still can, because supply chain disruptions will start to spread at a breathtaking speed before you even notice. And what we experienced in previous years will be nothing compared to the disorder that is ahead.
Remember, Minister Yeshua told you. I told you. I told him Most High. They didn't listen. Hey, I couldn't help them. Last video of the day. This was today.
The U.S. economy is falling apart at a frightening pace. Right now, pretty much every piece of hard economic data is telling us that a historic slowdown is taking place. And that is resulting in dramatic consequences for millions of Americans. Every sector of the economy is starting to falter, and the population is having to cope with the highest cost of living in nearly 4 decades. Even financial markets that performed well during the past few years, despite the efforts of the health crisis, are currently experiencing a meltdown. At this point, everyone could see that we're officially entering another devastating economic downturn that can erupt a lot sooner than previously expected. Financial and economic losses are rising to the tune of trillions of dollars with each passing month. Conversely, the U.S. debt load is soaring to levels never before seen in human history. Do you have any idea how alarming that is? We must start paying attention to all of the alarm bells that are ringing, because things are really getting out of control out there. For that reason, in today's video, we've compiled some astonishing numbers that reveal the rapid decay of the U.S. economy. But before checking this list, please support us by leaving a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel so you don't miss our upcoming list. Without
the decay of the U.S. Remember he said that.
further ado, here are 20 really big numbers that show that the U.S. economy is starting to fall
Check
apart
this
very
out.
rapidly. 1. Over the past 2 years, the U.S. ran a trade deficit of over $1.53 trillion. In 2020, the gap in goods and services trade rose to $678.7 billion. Last year, the U.S. trade deficit hit nearly $860 billion. This year, we're right on track to run a trade deficit that's even larger than the sum of both prior years. In March alone, the U.S. trade deficit hit a monthly record high of $109 billion, according to Commerce Department data. 2. The U.S. is over $30.4 trillion in debt, which makes up for the greatest debt bubble in the history of the world. This means
The world.
that our debt burden is bigger than the GDP of China, Japan, and India combined. 3. The United States owes China approximately $1.08 trillion, as the Eastern superpower is one of the largest foreign holders of U.S. debt in the form.
Look at that. Look who owns the debt of Babylon. Look at that. I wonder what these countries are going to do, because Babylon can never pay. Think about it. When you miss a payment, what happens? They make a phone call, right? Hey, missed a payment. We're going to try and work things out with you, right? But what happens when it's continually, year after year after year? Bad things happen, right? What you think is going to happen here? Bad things.
Of Treasury securities. 4. The rest of the $29 trillion debt load is either held by the U.S. population or the government. According to FEE calculations, if every single household in America was forced to pay off that debt, each one of them would have to disburse over $231,000. Or
I don't got that one. And that ain't my debt. That certainly ain't my debt.
each person would have to pay around $90,000. Actually, even if we paid $1 per second of the year, it would still take 713,470 years to pay down that entire sum.
Everyone paid $1.
Every day we spend more than $900 million on interest payments on that debt. With that money, we could afford to pay for a 4-year college degree with all expenses included for around 27,464 graduating high schoolers on a daily basis. These figures show us that we're not investing in our future, but we are trapped in a bubble of debt that only grows bigger every year. 6. Meanwhile, in 2022, the student loan debt in the U.S. rose to $1.762 trillion. At this point, 1 in 4 Americans, or 44.7 million people, carry student loan debt. On average, each one of these students is $37,172 in debt. 7. At the same time, as virtually everything is getting more expensive in America, consumer debt is also soaring. In the first quarter of 2022, consumer debt rose to a staggering $15.84 trillion, with credit card debt reaching $841 billion in the first 3 months of 2022, according to data released by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. 8. Enough about debt. Do you know that approximately 800,000 permanent business closures happened over the past year?
Ooh, hey, this is the numbers they wasn't telling people. I said it. I remember telling people, some people speak to me, say, hey, brother, I don't think this is a good time to start a business. Hey, man, you know, the Most High gave me, hey, I'm telling you, hey, this ain't the time. Brother, look at the prophecies going on. Oh, we're good. Went and bought him a truck. Said, look, Most High blessing me. I got a truck, start my business, and now look how much money it costs to put in the trucks now. Boy, it's getting tough. Wish people listen, but hey.
According to data collected by Business Insider, small businesses and individual companies accounted for 2/3 of the closures, while about 1/3 of that figure represented retail store shutdowns. 9. Over the past year, the cost of living rose 8.6%, but wages actually shrank.
The wages, you heard that? The wages shrank. They didn't just stay where they at. As inflation gets higher, your pay gets lower.
Gap between CEOs and U.S. workers jumped to 670 to 1 last year, meaning that the average CEO received $670 in compensation for every $1 single the worker received,
Listen to
according to the Institute for Policy Studies.
Listen to these
The report
numbers.
tracked 300 top U.S. companies and found that CEOs made an average of $10.6 million, while the average U.S. worker made only $23,916 in 2021.
Good.
10. At the same time, working conditions have continued to deteriorate. A whopping 47.8 million workers in the U.S. left their jobs voluntarily in 2021, the highest number of resignations cited by the Bureau of Labor Statistics since they started tracking such data in 2001. In April 2022 alone, 4.4 million people resigned in the United States, and according to the 2022 Global Benefits Attitude Survey, 44% of the U.S. workforce is threatening to quit their jobs this year.
Ooh,
The data shows employees are
44%
prepared.
of the workforce is threatening to get new jobs this year. This video was today, by the way. 44. So it's a class of homeless people. It's gonna be people who have no jobs, people who can't even get into an apartment, let alone a house. Babylon is finished.
And open to go somewhere else, highlighted Tracy Malcolm, global leader of the Future of Work and Risk at the consulting firm. 11. Today, more than 31.9% of the U.S. labor force, or 51.9 million workers, make less than $15 per hour.
And 1/3 make less than $15 an hour. So I believe that's more, but 1/3 of Babylon makes less than $15 an hour. How are they gonna survive?
Many are stuck at the federal minimum wage, which is less than half of that hourly rate, according to data compiled by Oxfam. 12. As interest rates continue to go up, in May, serious mortgage delinquencies went up by 55% over pre-pandemic levels.
You heard that? Mortgage delinquencies went up 55%. See, I told you, they let those people get in those homes just to suck them. That's what it was. That's what it was. Seriously. June 5th, 2022.
Black Knight data showed the number of borrowers who are 3 or more payments past due on their mortgage rose by an additional 640,000 last month. 13. New home sales fell by nearly 17% in April as buying became even less affordable. Compared to a year ago, home sales dropped by 26.9%, according to a joint report from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the U.S. Census Bureau. It was the 5th consecutive month of declines, signaling that the housing market boom is now over. 14. Given the increases in both prices and rates, the monthly payment of principal and interest for a median-priced home is 57% more expensive today than a year ago, costing a homeowner $720 for a month, according to numbers from Freddie Mac. 15. Across the 6 states and 31 cities tracked by Princeton University's eviction lab, landlords filed for more than 10,247 evictions in the past 15 days.
Say what? Almost 10,000 evictions. Remember, this video was today. 10,000 evictions just last week. That should tell you where we're headed. Just last week, brothers and sisters. Gotta be careful and be safe out here. Follow the Most High. Seek His guidance, His love. That's the only way we're gonna make it through this.
Texas cities, Houston, Dallas, and Fort Worth, landlords filed for 37,000 evictions in the first 3 months of the year.
Look at that. Houston, Dallas, and Fort Worth. 37,000 combined evictions. Come on. And see what it says? In March, the eviction protections ended. So, no, man. Hey, you knew we was in Babylon was in a bad state when they had to put an eviction moratorium, when they had to have a nationwide moratorium saying don't evict people. You knew we were in a bad state.
According to a Texas Tribune report based on the same data, in total, 976,131 evictions occurred across the country in the past 18 months. 16. January 2022 saw a massive jump in the number of foreclosure stats.
Foreclosures. 700% in foreclosures.
With Atom Data Solutions.
So don't be fooled, brothers and sisters. People losing their homes left and right.
Reporting 23,204 foreclosure filings, a 700% year-over-year increase, according to Black Knight. Rising foreclosure rates are an important indicator of growing distress in the housing market. As foreclosures steadily rise, this seems like one of the biggest red flags that a housing market correction is coming. 17. U.S. financial markets are facing a historic decline this year. The stock market meltdown of 2022 has wiped out more than $7 trillion in market value from the blue chip stocks in the S&P 500. On top of that, the crypto market lost over 55% of its market capitalization, or around $1.19 trillion, according to CoinMarketCap data. The sell-off continues to accelerate as economic conditions disappoint investors. 18. Compared to a year ago, the price of gasoline has spiked by 64%, with perfect timing for summer driving season, hitting a national average of over $5 per gallon. If gas prices continue going up at this rate, drivers are likely to spend on average 70% more on gas than they did in the summer of 2021. 19. On the same note, U.S. energy prices rose by 34.6% over the past 12 months, according to the country's Labor Department. Within the category, fuel oil posted a 16.9% monthly gain in March, pushing the 12-month surge to 106.7%. 20. According to a new CNBC CFO Council survey, 10% of financial officers expect a recession to start in the months ahead.
Now, this says first half of 2023. So what, they're just gonna let the inflation roll? They're just gonna keep evicting people? Hey, I'm telling you, get ready, brothers and sisters. This is a fight for your life. Yeah, the same shall be saved. I hope and pray. And I'm always telling my wife, like, I hope and pray we get new congregants from this, and that they change their life and recognize that they can't do it by themselves. That the only one who can help you is the Almighty. I really do hope. No, it's the numbers of a lot of people experiencing that is very slim according to Scripture. Scripture is always true. Okay, it says, let the word of God be true, but every man a liar, which means, hey, the word of God is true. I can want that all day long, but the sad reality is the majority of the people, they're not going to care. They're just going to keep going. Unfortunately. But, hey, you know, for those out there who are righteous, who are tired, praise the Most High when they recognize, and I pray that they do come to the Most High.
No CFO forecast a recession any later than the second half of next year, and no CFO thinks the economy will avoid a recession, reads the report. Have you ever heard of a survey where 100% of the respondents agree? Confidence in the United States economy is at an all-time low. In essence, everyone has started to realize that the U.S. economy is clearly moving in the wrong direction. Every month that goes by, we continue to see more and more evidence that a historic economic collapse is underway. The everything bubble is now officially bursting. The perfect storm economists warned about is not on the horizon anymore. That perfect storm is already here. And it is safe to say that our lives will never be the same again. The United States of America is about to experience the consequences of decades of exceedingly reckless decisions, and the chaos that is coming will be extreme.
All right. And to end it for the day, brothers and sisters, Revelations chapter 17. Verse 4 through 6 reads, And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, with the blood of the martyrs of Yeshua. When I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And I wanted to include this, so I wanted you to know. Without a shadow of a doubt, you should be able to tell that this is Babylon. Without a shadow of a doubt, you should be able to tell that it's fallen. Without a shadow of a doubt, you should be able to tell that many people are clueless. But remember, blessed are your eyes and your ears that see and hear. Everyone's not going to understand. All I just remember, Christ said was, it will be as the days of Noah, and it will be as the days of Lot. Now, remember this. Noah preached for a little bit, and then he stopped. Lot never preached. He just ran. You follow me? I hope you follow me. Because we preach it now. Myself and others around the world, we're preaching now. Soon, the Most High is going to activate lock mode. We're going to have to run. And brothers and sisters, from the looks of it, we're right around the corner. I mean, look at the world. You know what's funny, right? When it comes to this month, you know, they say the month of June is Pride Month, right? And did anyone see that the CDC and the news said that the monkeypox comes from same-sex relationships? Well, that's what they wanted, right? Pride, right? That's what they said. The same-sex relationships, you got monkeypox. Hey, you know, now go ahead and tell people who are in that persuasion, hey, I am concerned for you. I don't want you to be plagued by this. And the first thing they'll say is, oh, well, you know, I'm going to dine in this, or yeah, bring it on. You know, they usually like to scoff and be mockers. But hey, their Lord and Savior, Dr. Fauci, he said monkeypox comes from men-on-men relations, women-on-women relations. Yeah. Let me end it with a beautiful scripture, little encouragement. Zechariah chapter 8. It reads the coming. Again, Zechariah chapter 8, verse 1. Again, the word of the Lord of hosts came to me, saying, thus saith the Lord of hosts, I was jealous for Zion with great jealousy, and I was jealous for her with great fury. Thus saith the Lord, I am returned unto Zion, and will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem shall be called the city of truth, and the mountain of the Lord of hosts. the holy mountain. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, there shall yet old men and old women dwell in the streets of Jerusalem, and every man in his hand for every age, for very age. And the streets of the city shall be full of boys and girls playing in the streets thereof. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, if it be marvelous in the eyes of the remnant of this people in these days, should it also be marvelous in mine eyes, saith the Lord of hosts. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, behold, I will save my people from the east country and from the west country. And I will bring them, and they shall dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and they people. And I will be their God in truth and in righteousness. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, let your hands be strong, ye that hear these days, these words, by the mouth of the prophets, which were in the day that the foundation of the house of the Lord of hosts was laid, that the temple might be built. Now, this is a very interesting scripture for those who may be new to this scripture. When it says, let your hands be strong, it's not referring to physical violence, it's referring to the prophets. Okay? It's referring to the prophets. And what is a prophet? Prophet is someone who speaks. Now, the only way to understand a prophet is to go into the book of 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. Now ye are the body of Christ, verse 27, and members in particular. And God hath set some in the church, first apostles, secondarily prophets, thirdly teachers. After that, miracles, then gifts of healing, helps, governments, diversity of tongues, are all apostles, are all prophets, are all teachers, are all workers of miracles, having all the gifts of healing, do all speak with tongues, do all interpret, but covet earnestly the best gifts, and yet show I unto you a more excellent way. So when you have, and the Christian church has butchered the titles, because in Christ's church, people need to be acknowledged as either apostles, which are ministers, pastors, prophets, or thirdly, teachers. Those are the positions. Now you do see the word bishop in the book of Timothy. Bishop is a Gentile leader. Nothing to do with the body of Christ. That was Paul calling someone a bishop, because they were over a Gentile church. Paul put them over. Okay, same thing as a deacon. It's a entity of the Gentile church. But as for the body of Christ, this is how you acknowledge people. Apostles, which are ministers, pastors, elders, priests, the prophets, and teachers. And in this time, because there's only 144 what would be apostles or disciples or ministers, they are also prophets as well. Going back to Zechariah. So the point of that, is when you say let your hands be strong, it means for those such as myself and other brothers out there who are doing teaching of the Most High, let your hands be strong, which means don't be discouraged. If you look this term up and do your due diligence or research, this term was used for us ministers who no one listens to. but yet we want to save souls. We have very few followers, but yet we want to save souls. And it hurts us more than anything to see people, millions of people with Joel Osteen or Creflo Dollar or TD Jakes or even Israelite communities who are wolves in sheep's clothing and leading their congregations to slaughter. Yeah, that hurts. But the Most High said, eventually we will become the foundation of the house of the Lord. How do we know this? For before these days, what days was this? Before the days where the Most High would bless the remnant of his people, before these days, there was no hire for man. Now, what does that sound like? It sounds like you can't get a job, right? So before people would understand who the elect men of the Most High were, the world had to pummel down in economic collapse. There was no hire for man, nor hire for beasts. Neither was there any peace to him that went out. So guess what? You go outside your home, you go outside a city, it's just going to be chaos. It says, neither was there any peace to him that went out or came in because of the affliction. What affliction? For I set all men, everyone, against his neighbor. And I'm going to go over this again in my lesson, and if it be the Most High's will, the absence of gold, where all neighbors will fight each other because there's no more money, and they're going to remember what their neighbors got. They say, I want what you have. Every neighbor will fight. So you may say, oh, I'm cool with this neighbor, I'm cool with that. Oh, we friends. Watch when no money exists. Watch when no money exists. Watch when they don't have a job, or they see food, or they smell food that you have or someone else has and they want it. They're not going to ask for it. He said, I set men, everyone, against his neighbor. But now I will not be unto the residue of this people as in the former days. So the Most High is saying, while all the sinful people fight each other, I'm going to make sure that they fight each other and forget about my children, my remnant. And this is why it's important to be under a man of the Most High, because you notice this came with being under a prophet of the Most High, a minister of the Most High. All right. What does it promise? What does the Most High promise? For the seed shall be prosperous, the vine shall give her fruit, and the ground shall give her increase, and the heavens shall give their due, and I will cause the remnant of this people to possess all things. So while they have nothing, I told you the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. He is going to bless us with what they lose. Because remember, he said what? Before these days, there was no hire for men. They couldn't get a job. They couldn't keep their home. The Most High said, I'm going to cause this remnant of people to possess all things. All things. What is all things? Remember, if it be marvelous in the eyes of the remnant of this people in these days, should it also be marvelous in my eyes? So whatever brings us joy, the Most High will bring it into existence. Oh, they're going to want to be around the men of the Most High then. And it shall come to pass that as ye were a curse among the heathen, O house of Judah, in the house of Israel. So will I save you, and ye shall be a blessing. Oh, they're going to consider us a blessing then when we have the knowledge of how to survive. When we have food and water, when we have shelter, they'll consider us a blessing then. Fear not, but let your hands be strong. Because that means whoever comes into our congregations, we got work to do. You got to learn. You got to relearn. You got to find out your talents. We got to try that spirit. We got to see, how did you survive to make it this far, to stand before the Most High's chosen men, to lead people? What did you do? Did you kill someone? Did you fight someone? Did you run from people? How did you get there? Oh yes, believe. We're going to go into detail. Because ain't just nobody going to come in a congregation with elderly, with widows, single parent mothers, and infant children and just say, I love the Most High. Oh, we're going to do a weeding out process. Verse 14, for thus saith the Lord of hosts, as I thought to punish you when your fathers provoked me to wrath, saith the Lord of hosts, and I repented not. So again, have I thought in these days to dwell unto Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. Fear ye not. For these are the things that ye shall do. Speak ye every man the truth to his neighbor. Execute judgment of truth and peace in your gates. Gates means your land or your home. Now, this is a big one, because when the time comes when there is what? When the time comes when there is no higher for man, that's when we step it up a little bit before the famine of the word comes, and we speak everyone. Tell them, hey, well, since you ain't doing nothing, come and learn about the Almighty. Come and save your soul. Come and thank him for not allowing you to die so you can know him and get to the kingdom. And this is what a lot of Christians are going to have problems with. Executing judgment. Because what you have learned in a Christian church, a Baptist church, a non-denominational, a Pentecostal church, what you learned what a pastor and a minister is not even biblical, because a minister speaks judgment, as we know in Romans 13. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God, and the powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is a minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is a minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. So those who execute judgment are ministers. Therefore, the only person in the congregation to judge others is the minister. And a lot of people are going to fall because they're going to say, oh, well, you can't judge me. I don't like when you say this. Then go somewhere else. Bye. You don't have to be here, because we're going to follow the Most High. I told you, and I tell my congregation in person, I tell people all over, I say, you may not like me, that's fine. I may not like your background, that's fine. But guess what? Does it matter? No, because I'm not here to like people, and I'm not here for you to like me. I'm here to get you to the kingdom. That's all I care about, is getting your soul to eternal rest. You may not like everything I say. Who cares? I don't. I care about where you go after this. And if I'm going to care about every little discrepancy you may have about me, then I'm not going to do my job properly. That's normal. So I'm going to execute judgment and truth just when the Most High says we are to do such things, and it will be in righteousness, as the Most High said. And he says in verse 17, and let none of you imagine evil in your hearts against his neighbor, and love no false oath, for all these things, for all these are things that I hate, saith the Lord. And the word of the Lord came, and the word of the Lord of hosts came unto me, saying, thus saith the Lord of hosts, fast the 4th month, and fast the 5th month, and fast the 7th month, and fast the 10th month, shall be to the house of Judah joy and gladness, cheerful feast. Therefore, love the truth and peace. And people know in my congregation in person, I am Judah, so my household fast. You don't have to fast the whole month, but at least take 2 or 3 days in each of these months to fast, so that the Most High will bless you with joy and gladness, that you will have a cheerful feast, meaning when there's famine, he will provide you plenty, and love and accept the truth and change. And that is how you receive peace in your life. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, it shall yet come to pass that there shall come people and inhabitants of many cities. And remember I said this? I said, make sure you have value. Make sure you know your talents. And then how can people say that they are men of the Most High when they don't understand what they're even supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, and what they're supposed to look for? Because it says, it shall come to pass that there shall come people and inhabitants of many cities, and an inhabitant of one city shall go to another, saying, let us go speedily and pray before the Lord, and to seek the Lord of hosts. I will go also. So these are strangers meeting each other to go serve the Most High. Verse 22, yea, many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem, and to pray before the Lord. And remember that term in Jerusalem means in peace. And thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all languages of the nations, and this is women and men, even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. So how do you identify the men of the Most High? You will recognize who these people are by Scripture. You will recognize that God is with these people. And guess what? They're not going to recognize now. What did the Most High say? He said, when the days were where there was no higher, then they recognized, I need God. And then they recognize that we got to find those who God is with, because that's the only way we're going to survive. So with that being said, brothers and sisters, stay afloat, stay encouraged, because when 10 people come to the house of Judah, that's my brothers and sisters worldwide, not just our African Americans in Babylon, but that's worldwide too. We got some Brazilian Judas, the favelas, and we got some Panamanian brothers and sisters who are Judah, and you even got people who link to Judah who are in Yemen and still going through slavery. You have some in Libya. You have the children of Judah also in Iraq. So they will cleave eventually. You also have some Judah in Japan. The original, even everyone knows the original samurais were Judah. So they know. Just remember, keep yourself righteous. Work on your talents. Make sure your light can shine bright, because that is the way people will identify that God is with you. And with that being said, brothers and sisters, I love you all. That concludes the first portion of the Great Recession. The next part that I'm going to go into either the Sabbath or tomorrow is when the world flatlines, because it's getting ready to tank. When the world flatlines. We got videos and scripture for y'all on that one too. All right, with that being said, I love you all. Stay afloat. Continue to pray. Continue to strengthen what remains, and focus on your weaknesses. And be ready to do the work of the Most High. And when this comes, whether you're in a low estate or in a good estate, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're sleeping in a car or an apartment or a home, have a smile on your face and be ready to tell people why you have that smile. I love you all. Shalom.